Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of False Reality Check. I'm your host, one of your hosts, Buffalo Rambler.
And I am Legs.
And today we have another great one because we invited our friend, Lindsey Scharmyn, on.
Yes, Lindsey is. I was so excited for this one because I've been listening to Lindsey for a few, not, I don't want to say years, but it's been a while since I started listening to her. And I forgot where I first heard her. I don't remember if it was on Tinfoil Hat or Charlie Robinson.
That's where I first heard her was Tinfoil Hat.
Okay. Yeah. But her story on whichever episode I first listened, it immediately drew me to her and what she had to offer. And just a wonderful light soul.
Yeah, and you got to go on her show without me, but that's okay because one day I'll get on her show because I'll be cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. My first live show on Rogue Ways. If you haven't seen that, check it out. But it was fun. Lindsey is such a cool person. We talked about a bunch of topics. Her master cleanse that she was in the middle of or going to be starting, I guess, at the time. Tarot readings. We get into that a little bit. Her story, and she does tell her story about her demon experience, which
A demon attack.
yeah, which I've heard previously, but Buffalo's never heard it, so he
Yeah.
got to hear it for the first time.
I was freaked out because that's some crazy shit. You guys got to hear this. If you haven't heard her talk about it on other shows, I've never heard her say this before, and I was just like, wow, I can't believe so many things can come into our life. Just we think uninviting things, but they happen to us, and I think she handled it very well.
Yeah, and she just continues to grow um, as a shaman, and I see her as like my shaman. I don't
Yeah,
know.
and she's a writer.
She's a writer.
Yeah.
She has awesome jewelry on her website, which we'll put in the show notes. Um, yeah, you'll be able to find her in the show notes for sure. But yeah, I can't remember what else.
We talked about her new
Yes.
brighter you.
Yeah, the online university she's starting, Brighter You, which I'm going to be a part of. Super excited. So, yeah,
For sure.
enjoy.
There are those of us who truly follow their path to truth, light, and love. Some of these people just emanate a vibration of wisdom and gratitude. Lindsey Scharmyn is one of these wonderful souls. As she hosts Rogue Ways and Middle Path, Lindsey tackles spiritual growth while maintaining her eye on exposing the truth behind the plans of the parasite class. Sitting and talking with her was like getting some one-on-one time with your shaman and experiencing their guidance and observations. It was truly a treat, and we look forward to many more. Please welcome Lindsey Scharmyn.
Hello.
Whoa.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
How are you?
How are you? I'm great. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Fantastic.
It's good.
Excellent.
Good
It's
to
nice
see you.
to meet you, Buffalo.
I know you guys
Sorry.
got started without me.
I know. I feel rough. I was like, what did I do that for? I don't know. It needed to happen for some reason,
Yeah.
right?
It must have needed to happen. That's why. Otherwise, why else would it have happened? So,
Exactly.
yeah.
I needed to be thrown out there on a live stream by myself just to break me out of my shell a little bit more. So
Trial by fire.
that's
Yes.
right. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing it.
Awesome.
Well,
Welcome to False Reality Check, Lindsey. And
Thanks.
we have a what do we call it?
pointless question of
Oh,
the interview
yes.
for you
Oh,
in honor
I love
of Rogue Ways,
Rogue Ways.
it. Thank you.
as fans. So Buffalo, take it away because he actually thought of it, and I was
Yeah,
like,
'cause I
that's,
thought it-
that's pretty good.
I was like, this is a random question, but if you were a consumer product, what consumer product, like a useless consumer product, what would you be and why?
That's a great question.
So random.
A useless consumer product. I would be like a ball or some simple toy in like the kids aisle at like a grocery store, like the really cheap toys.
Okay.
The dollar toys.
Yeah, like a McDonald's toys. So because I feel like kids still have that ability to be like, oh, this ball is amazing, even though we're like, oh, it's this like shitty ball from China and it's like $1 and this kid really likes it for some reason. And so I would at least be loved and celebrated, despite my uselessness.
Oh my God.
Oh my god.
I remember seeing those in the grocery store, just like cage and these plastic balls. And
I love those.
I remember as a kid, even now when I look at it, I just want to jump in
Yes.
and just
Yes.
like
Yes.
roll around. Yeah, I feel you.
It's like a
That's-
it's like a ball pit for like little kids like that want really big, softer balls than the harder little, clunky ones. Those hurt.
See,
Have you ever
we
dove
need this
into
for
that?
adults.
Yeah.
We need giant rubbery like bouncy balls, like beach balls almost, and like a little bit deeper of a pit. And
I would love that.
we need the adult playroom. This is a new business we need to make.
Hey, so what would the adult playroom consist of?
Would have that
Let's
ball
build
pit
it.
for sure.
Okay.
But it can't.
Like
It
giant
can't
ball
just
pit.
have like it can't just be like those rope courses where you like gain trust, because that's like still work. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to do this for a purpose. Like this needs to be like total play.
Yeah.
It has to have a castle of some kind.
Okay. Okay.
I love that. What about instead of the Chuck E. Cheese area where Chuck E. Cheese performs, we have like a rave, like right
Yes,
there. That's better.
with like a mosh pit, how it used to be in the '90s, where someone fell down and they'd like pick them back up
That's
again instead of just like
right.
stomp on their face.
Oh my god.
Sorry, do I have that backwards? Is that how it
I
is now? And it
mean-
was rough back then. I don't remember.
I don't know. It's been a while since I've been in a mosh pit,
He was kind of
but
supportive when you were doing it.
yeah, it was totally supportive. We'd always pick people up if they'd fall. So
Yeah,
It's
that's
good
how it should
times.
be. And then I like got thrown up and like crowd surfed, and I was like way too scared to have like asked for that or tried to do it, but it happened because people are nice.
nice. Yeah, I don't think I've crowd surfed one time.
No.
So
Man.
Well, I was snowboarding. It was a concert called Board Stiff up in Washington, and so it was a snowboarding. Like it was outdoors. There was snow. Everybody was snowboarding, and there was a concert. And it was Bad Religion. It was my first concert I've ever been to, and I loved Bad Religion. And I went up to the like crowd, and my friends were all there all the time. And it wasn't the friends I'd come from, but it was like another group of friends that just happened to be there. And I was like, "Oh my god, you guys are here!" And they were like, "You're here!" And they just like grabbed me and threw me up. I was like, "Whoa!"
nice.
Suddenly
Oh,
I'm
man.
crowd surfing, and then I was in the mosh pit, and like that was fun. I think I was like 13 years old or something, and
All right,
So
right
cool.
on.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
talk about trial by fire. That's awesome.
yeah, like you're going whether you like it or not. I'm like, did they just not want to hang out with me? And they're like, yeah, let's get rid of her, throw her up on top of the crowd, she'll go somewhere else.
Oh man, that's so awesome. Well, I wanted to ask you about your master cleanse.
Oh yes.
If you're
Oh yeah,
open to talking about it, because
absolutely.
we have never done anything
No.
like that, and I know it's been thrown around a little bit. Colon cleanse, everyone needs to do that. We've never done that, so if you're open to
Yeah.
talking about any of that and your experience with
Absolutely.
it, we'd like to hear about it.
Yeah. So how does like what does it start with? Does it start with actually cleansing like everything, or do you just like do the food, the fasting part? Like how does it work?
Well, so the master cleanse, ideally, this is the way it goes. And everyone should refer to the original master cleanse book or whatever. Or there's actually a really handy PDF that's online that you can find. There's a lot of sites and there's a lot of gimmicks and there's a lot of stuff, and you should ignore all of it and you should go to the source because there's really specific ratios to follow. So I'll just say that. And also, I'm sure we should say like we're not doctors, and you should
Yeah.
trust the murderers instead of us.
Yes,
and
we're
do what
not
they say for some
Rockefeller
reason.
doctors.
Yeah, yeah. So but you lead in first. They call it a lead in, and basically you want to do fruits and vegetables only. You can cook them, not cook them, whatever you like to do. And you can do like some root vegetables and some more like substantive sort of stuff just to stay. You're not ever trying to starve yourself, and you don't ever want to feel really famished or hungry. And it can be hard if you've never done that sort of thing before to tell the difference between when you're having like an intense sort of craving and like when your body needs energy. So you just have to be present with yourself enough to know the difference. And when in doubt, you just take more calories no matter where you're at in this cleanse. So it's not like a weight loss diet. Although a lot of people do lose weight, and you'll understand why the more we talk about it. But you do want to do like 2 or 3 days at least of just fruits and vegetables. And the main reason is because you are going to do deep intestinal cleansing and colon cleansing, and you want to have that be easy as possible. And so if you have meat and dairy and things that are harder to digest kind of in there, it's just not going to go as well for you. And the cleaner you can get ahead of time, the more cleansing you're going to be able to do, and the more your liver is going to be able to release toxins and all of these things. So you just really want to do the lead in well. And some people cut out coffee at this point. I'm still drinking my coffee today, and I am going to not have any coffee during my master cleanse. Johnny, my guy, he's probably going to have coffee during his master cleanse. And there's a debate as to whether that's allowed or not. But, that's I'm like, no, this is a good opportunity to quit caffeine, do a little reset. And he's like, why would I ever do that? There's no point to that. So it's just wherever you stand on that.
For sure.
But that's not even the master cleanse yet. That's just the lead in. It's just 3 days of just fruits and vegetables and, not other stuff. People are like, oh, well, I can still have, I don't even know, like frappuccinos or something, like it's a drink, it's not food. And you're like, no, the point is to really have only fruits and vegetables, maybe water, maybe like juices that are actually juice, and teas, something, and coffee, I guess, if you would like, or whatever, but to cut out everything else already. Then you start the actual cleanse. And that's the next phase. I don't know if you want me to just go into describing that, or if you want to.
If you're comfortable, yeah.
Why not?
It's pretty easy. I shouldn't say that at all. It's not very easy, especially if you're new to it. It can be really hard because there's a lot of mental and emotional energy we have attached to food and eating. And so as you're letting go of all the foods you eat and just having this one drink, it's a lemonade drink that you have all day every day, you can like have some massive, like I had a lot of food insecurity growing up. We were really poor and I lived in poverty, and so I had like a lot, especially the first 2 times I did this, I had a lot of like deep anxiety and like anger and like sadness and grief and all this stuff. And I was like, what the hell? And I just realized like, oh, this is just me letting go of the food part of this. Like, this isn't even the cleansing yet. So this can happen too. And so things you may not expect may come up. And so it's really cool if you can do this on like a week off from work, and give yourself that time to go through some of those things. And anyway, the drink itself that you're going to be drinking is, let me see if I can remember it offhand. I think it's 2 tablespoons of grade A. It's the darkest, richest maple syrup that you can find. So you want to find out which. And the reason why you have this is because it's got some calories in it, but it also has a bunch of nutrients that your body desperately needs. You shouldn't ever go without them. So it's providing you with these minerals and things that you need. And then 2 tablespoons, I'm going to say, of fresh squeezed organic lemon juice. So you get the actual squeezer and you squeeze it out and you pour that in. And then 8 ounces of water, and then 1/8 of a teaspoon, or maybe it's 1/10 of a teaspoon, something like that, of cayenne pepper. So it's a spicy, sweet lemonade. It's delicious. When you're first having it, you're like, this is a diet? Or like, this is like a cleanse? Like, this is amazing. And that lasts for a few days. And after a while, you're like, I don't ever want to drink this again. Oh my God, why am I doing this to myself?
Oh my God.
But each of those ingredients has a purpose. The lemon and the cayenne really, well, the lemon gives you a lot of nutrients you need too. And then the cayenne and the lemon both like start cleansing your intestines themselves and like literally kind of like almost like scraping your intestinal walls, because you build up plaque and you build up like stuff that has never been digested, and like you really start to let loose a lot of that stuff. And for the first few days, you'll still have probably bowel movements on your own, but your body starts to stop. It starts to stop digesting in that way because you're not chewing. There's nothing in your stomach. It's all liquid. And so it starts to shut down. And so by the 3rd day, usually, I think it is 4th at the latest, you start to do what's called the saltwater flush. And some people don't do this. And this, if you don't do this step, you're kind of negating the whole purpose of this cleanse. Because the whole purpose of the cleanse is to clean your intestinal walls and to allow your liver, your other like organs to release these toxins that are then going to get into your intestines, and you're going to flush them out. And so the saltwater flush is a really essential part of this. And you want to do it at least once a day. It keeps your digestion moving and it keeps you flushing out things from your body. And this is really gross for a lot of people. Not only the drinking of the salt water is really gross and it's just uncomfortable. I just have to tell myself, I'm like, this is broth. I'm drinking broth. My body loves broth. Otherwise I'll barf. And like, you need to keep it down because it has to go through. So like, I have to convince myself of this. And I used to drink this saltwater flush at like the hottest temperature I could, because I was told that that's like the best way to get it going through you. And basically you're putting 2 tablespoons, again, everything's 2 tablespoons in my head, so I may be wrong about some of those, but I think it's 2 tablespoons of just pure salt in 24 ounces of water. Like, could be 32. So it's a lot of water and it's very salty.
It's a lot of water.
Wow.
Yeah, and you're chugging it and you need to get all of it down, and it's the same like pH or whatever, the same salinity as your blood. And so your body receives it and is like, oh, this is blood, we don't digest this, and that's why it just shoots it through you, and then it comes out hopefully soon. If you're a healthy functioning person, it should come out pretty quickly. And a lot of us are not healthy functioning people, and we didn't know that until we did the saltwater flush, and we're like, oh my god, if that's not coming through, like there's some issues. And you just want to keep doing it. You want to keep doing the cleanse and keep doing saltwater flushes until it very easily goes through you after you drink the salt water.
Gosh.
So that's the least comfortable part of this cleanse, and it's the part that, again, people want to skip because they're like, oh no, nothing about that sounds good. And it's not. But this is the thing, it's uncomfortable. You have emotions that come up. It's uncomfortable. You start getting sick of the lemonade flavor. It's uncomfortable. It is not fun to drink that much salt water. It's uncomfortable to have things just come out and cleanse, and it's not pretty. And yet you start feeling the most intense calm and bliss that you've ever felt in your life. And by day like 5 especially, you're like deep in this ongoing state of just zen blissness. If you've ever microdosed, it's like that.
Yeah. Oh wow.
But naturally, and that continues for as long as you do the cleanse. You're just like, nothing can fluster you. I've had like things that should have sent me into like a tizzy, and I've just been like, well, that's life, isn't it? Like, just like amazing like a deep relief. So I love that. The rest of it is worth it, even if that was the only benefit, but that's just one of like a trillion benefits for you. It resets your addiction to sugar. It resets your addiction to caffeine if you quit it like I'm going to. It really gives you a chance to clean out all these toxins. Your skin is like glowing, and then you get that bliss stage, and it's really, really cool.
Oh wow. So you've done this before, I take it.
Yeah.
Many times.
I think this will be like my 5th or 6th
Oh
time.
wow.
And most people, I shouldn't say, I'm pretty sure most people only do 3 days. And I say only, I don't mean to be judgmental about that. I mean, you don't actually get to the bliss stage if you do 3 days, but you never have to do the saltwater flush if you only do 3 days. So people do it like, well, I gave my intestines, and it's true. You gave your intestines a rest, your body a rest. You did dump some toxins, you did clean some things out, and that's great. But if you can keep going a few days longer and do the saltwater flush, you're like, this whole state that you get to experience is far worth it.
Wow. So when it comes back, when you're done with the cleanse and you're thinking about your first meal, like for me, it would drive me crazy because I'm like, oh, my body's so pure at this point. Like, it's so clean. What the heck can I eat to not taint it? So what's your first meal been after this cleanse?
I almost always, well, first of all, I'll say the lead out generally is suggested that you do. So let's say you did 10 days of the cleanse itself. Then on day 11, you would do just fresh squeezed orange juice because it's similar enough to what you've been doing. It won't shock your system. And then you can just sort of let that, and if that all sits well and you get like halfway through that day and it's great, you might add some broth, like some bone broth. And then that should be really easy to digest too. And then the next day, you'll stick with the fresh orange juice and the bone broth, and you'll add in anything that's really easy for your body to digest that that is a fruit or a vegetable. So I would not suggest, for example, broccoli. It's harder for most people, or beans, those are harder to digest. But I almost always choose an avocado and a tomato because they're so good. Like, that is the best avocado and tomato you have ever had, and you're like, how did I not always just only eat avocado and tomato? Like, this is amazing. A little bit of salt, like the best. So that's generally where I go. And you do that for another day or so before you start having like salads and soups made of vegetables and fruits and maybe a little bit of meat, but not much, and you just ease back in.
Oh wow. Yeah, avocado and tomato is my go-to snack.
Yeah.
So
I'm like, do you guys know each other? I know you guys did the podcast, but I'm like, you guys are like very eerily similar.
Plan this all out before we were born. Or like an apple slice with some cinnamon would be really good.
Ooh,
like anything really is like, it blows your mind. You're like, Jesus Christ, this is what food tastes like? Like, what? And you think I could never get back to eating like burgers and fries or like steak and like, yeah, you can though. Within not that long either. You're like, yeah, I'll eat whatever I want. But it's pretty. So the whole thing, if you do a 10-day cleanse, you've actually done like 20 days about of cleansing. The lemonade part itself is 10 days, and then you did the lead in, you did the lead out, and all of that if you're doing it correctly.
Wow.
That's quite a process.
It's pretty, and it's good because you're reminding yourself like I can do anything. Like just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean I can't do it, and that there's benefits oftentimes in being sort of strict, or having a practice that you stick to and a goal that you reach, and like it's worth it when you do that. And so you're like reminding yourself like, yeah, I can do a lot more than I probably usually do, and it feels really good, and I'm capable of amazing things.
Oh man. Yeah, that is true. I love a good challenge, so that sounds like
You
something
do.
right up my alley.
You definitely do.
But yeah, we're gonna have to look into that and give it a shot. What do you think?
I'd be willing to try it. The lemonade thing doesn't sound too bad, but like you said, the saltwater thing, like that freaks me out. I had an issue where when she took me to the emergency room like right after the pandemic started, and apparently I had some kind of infection in
It
my
was so weird.
intestines or something, but I
Is
thought it
H.
was
pylori?
no, it wasn't that. They didn't identify what it was, but it was some kind of infection. But it felt like I was getting stabbed in the stomach, or like I had appendicitis. My dad had appendicitis. My grandma actually almost went septic because her appendix exploded. So I thought, oh, I've got appendicitis. When I went and they did the test, they're like, oh, your bowels are inflamed. You have an infection. So we're gonna give you these antibiotics, and it worked, but I don't know what it was, and so I've always thought about just clearing everything out. And I've done like not master cleanse, but I've done like the one cleanse I did was with what's that guy where we get our green juice from?
Oh man,
He
My
was on-
Chemical Free Body.
Yeah,
I
My
think.
Chemical Free Body. They do that digestive enzyme cleanse where if you do the whole body, I think you do like 6 pills a day, and it clears you, but probably not as good as salt water flushing you. So I just freaked out because they told me I'd have to go get like those colonoscopy things done,
Oh.
and I'm like, oh, but you have to drink that really shitty liquid, and then you have to shit your guts out, and your soul
Yeah.
comes out, and then it's just too much.
Yeah.
And so they ended up telling me I needed a COVID test to get it done. So I was like, nope, not gonna get it done. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. I was like, we're
Pretty
good.
much.
I'll just eat healthier, and I'll do my best. But this sounds like a good idea to really take care of that issue, so it doesn't happen necessarily again.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
maybe this is a good idea.
I think it's genuinely a good idea for, I'll say, like 97% of people, because of all of the benefits and the various ways that you get that. Like we said, like there's all these resets. You're no longer like just craving and addicted to all these things because your body is totally past that point by the time you start eating again. And you can quit a lot of things more easily. So like if you were going to quit smoking or something like that, it would be awesome to do it on like day 5 of Master Cleanse, because you're just like, nothing can bother me. Why would I don't even need cigarettes? Like I'm God.
For sure.
So you could do all these amazing things like during it, but definitely for intestinal, I just had this really weird intestine. I'm sure it was some sort of parasite or infection or who knows what. And lots of people talk about passing parasites and different things when they do this as well. And there was one more thing I was going to mention about it.
Oh,
I
man.
can't remember what it was. I'll tell you forever.
Okay.
It'll come back.
Yeah, that I don't know what it was. I've never seen him in so much pain ever, and it was just like a gradual buildup of pain
Ooh,
and
yeah.
for him. And
I just keeled over.
I don't know what that thing
God.
was, but yeah, it was gnarly.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is what I was going to say. We all really, the reason why I think it is good for everyone is it's like a preventative in general. If you were headed towards something like this, it's going to like wipe it out before it ever happens, and especially because we don't want to go get shit shoved up in our brain and like injected with things. We should probably do our best to take care of ourselves so that we don't need those people.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah, I've been super careful as of late. I'm such a klutz, just in general, but yeah, I'm very careful these days because I do not want to go to the doctor at all. We've avoided a COVID test this whole time. I don't plan on ever taking one. So we just got to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. The one good thing that came out of it though is I learned how Dilaudid feels like, and it's fantastic.
They gave you Dilaudid?
Oh boy, they sure
Damn.
did. Like injectable, and I was like,
Wow.
because I was writhing in pain, like I was just hunched over, like worse than Gollum. And yeah, they're like, this will make you feel good. I was like, what is it? They're like, Dilaudid. I was like, oh yeah, that'll make me feel
yeah,
great.
that'll make you feel good.
And like 20 seconds later, I was just like,
Yeah,
don't even feel it.
Yeah,
That's
it was
blowing my
weird.
mind. That is crazy. They don't give Dilaudid unless you're dying. They're like,
I
well,
felt
you
like I
might
was
die.
dying.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh,
I've been in some pretty bad pain in an emergency room, and they're like, here's an ibuprofen. I'm like, you assholes! Like, what? Come on.
Oh man.
Man, ibuprofen
You're
is
lucky.
so bad for you,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
is.
I try to avoid that when I can. If I get like a bad headache, I don't know if you know any good remedies. Once again, we are not doctors. We are not
Yeah.
medical professionals. We are just normal people who I don't know.
We're doing our best.
Yeah, we're doing our best and we're listening to our bodies and trying to take care of ourselves. But anyways,
Yeah, and we're pretty intelligent as far as gathering information and being
For sure.
objective about it as well. So I think
Yeah.
that counts for something.
yes.
But
But
you get like migraines or
no, just like once in a while I'll get, if I don't drink enough water and I go out in the sun for my job, I'll get like a headache or something. And
we are similar.
oh.
Who needs water? I've been to the emergency room a couple times in my life, and 2 of the like 3 or 4 times have been for just dehydration, which I didn't know. I was like, man, I can't stand up anymore. Like, fell over in the parking lot, and like, I don't know what's going on. And they're like, well, you're insanely dehydrated. So have you drank water in the past week? I'm like, oh, maybe not. Like coffee, you know, like, no, I don't think I've had any water. They're like, let's 2 bags both times
Oh,
of
wow.
IV. Yeah. So
my
maybe you're not as bad as me, but
yeah.
drinking water is so easy. Why can't we just do it? I'm much better now.
Yeah, I'm much better. Like I don't know how much I drink a day, but I'll fill this thing up and drink as many as I can
Yeah,
in a full day.
you get on me for not drinking enough water, and I'll get headaches too. And you're like, "Did you drink enough water?" I'm like, "Well, probably not. I probably didn't."
Not.
Yeah,
Like,
but
it should be the easiest thing, and we're just like, no, I'd rather have coffee and anything but water. Like,
yeah, water. I mostly just drink water now, and then I'll have some tea also. Once in a while, a soda with like sugar, not like corn syrup, but that's like very rare if I have one of those.
my guilty pleasure is Zevia because it's stevia
Yes, that
flavored
is good.
soda.
Yeah.
But it's still an aluminum can. So like I still want to like try and do less of that, but I'll have that and coconut water. At least coconut. They're both hydrating, so I'm there's a plus.
Yes, coconut water is good. I didn't even think about the aluminum cans and how bad that
yeah,
is.
Yeah, I didn't think about that either. That's like a cause of Alzheimer's and all kinds of really shitty things.
Exactly. And I don't know. I know I have a bunch of different factors that are leading towards my mind being muddy, and I'm clarifying it more and more all the time. But I don't want to add one more thing to have to clean out later, you know?
Yeah.
So I really want to get that under control. I like those flavored seltzers. They have like, you know, nothing in them but like a little bit of fruit juice.
Yes.
I like those, and I like Stevia's, and they're both aluminum, and I just need to be better about not drinking 5 aluminum drinks a day. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I'm really bad with plastic or bottled water.
Mm.
I'm pretty
Well,
bad with that.
For work, because you go out in the field a lot. You have to take your little ice chest.
Yeah, but trying to leach that out. We started turning off our Wi-Fi at night when we sleep, and we've noticed a huge difference in our sleep. It's crazy.
It helps a lot. It helps quite a bit.
Yeah.
I want to build like a Himalayan salt block room and sleep in it. Like, have that be the bedroom.
Oh my
Just
gosh.
because then you're like, doesn't even matter what you leave off or not, right, or on, or, you know, it's like you're like completely protected from EMF. Like, plus it's Himalayan salt. Then you can just always have salt the rest of your life. Like, need some salt? Stores are closed. Can't get into them because you're not vaccinated. Come over.
quick salt lick.
Just lick the
Yeah.
wall.
You just have goats everywhere for some reason.
Oh man, yeah, that's like we turn off the Wi-Fi. We don't have anything else really that protects us from EMFs. Unfortunately, once we move, we won't be as bombarded with them. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
However, there is a very large cell phone tower that they put up recently
Yeah.
that we're planning on gifting, but anyways.
Ooh, yeah, that's good. That's a good way to combat it.
We
Yeah.
actually know who owns the property, so we might be able to do it directly. I'm hoping we can do it directly, because in that way it's right under the tower.
Yeah, that's rad.
Do you
Good
do you
job.
do any gifting?
I
Or have
haven't
you?
yet. I really it was after I had Mitch, the orgone donor, on the Rogueways. I really was excited about possibly getting a bunch of orgone from him and doing that, and then I just didn't. That's just how my life goes. It's like whatever whatever is in front of me and comes to me is what I follow and do. But what happened was within like a night or two, I had a dream. It wasn't even a dream. I have a hard time remembering unless I wrote it down in my journal and like went back and read it. I don't think it was a dream. I think it was as I was falling asleep, I do some meditations. And either way, I was visited by one of my guides and they were like, listen, here's how you're going to build your own. Because I make orgone. It's very different from Mitch's. But I don't make, tower busters or any of these things. It's just for personal use and for wearing and taking with you wherever you go. Most of them are pendants or earrings. And they taught me basically how to make my own, different from but similar to what Mitch's are. And so I was like, well, why wouldn't I just do that then? like my guide came out of their way to like teach me step by step what I would do to create this. And then I still haven't done that yet either.
Oh no.
So someday I will, but I
That's
just
so
haven't yet. But it's amazing because I live in a place where I'm surrounded by quartz of various different kinds, and quartz crystals are one of the best components to put into. Any crystal can be a great, in fact, any stone can be a great component to orgone, just depending on what you're doing and why you're doing it. But I can go walking in the park behind my house and just like pick up cartloads of quartz. Like it's just everywhere, it's just sitting around. So it'll be really, really easy for me to do once I finally do it.
wow. That's
It's
so
just
amazing.
everywhere.
That's amazing. That you live in an area like that with all those resources.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
I don't even know if it's like everywhere I go here, I notice it at least. I'm like, I found amethyst and quartz and citrine and just lying on the ground. And so one day I was like, because I do some rock tumbling as well, because I also make crystal and stone jewelry. And I was walking one day in the park and I was like, I'm not even going to look at what it is. I'm not going to try to dust it off and find out. I'm just going to grab just random stuff and just see. And I came back with, I had a yellow jade, which I don't even know how that's possible. I had a yellow jade that's wrapped around quartz and selenite. So it goes quartz, selenite, and they're like stacked together. And then that's wrapped in yellow jade. I'm like, how? What?
Amazing.
It's just like, is in the park. Like, did someone drop it at some point? It was like, I have no idea. I went looking for like, how rare is yellow jade? And it's apparently exceptionally rare.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
so now I'm like, is it just in that park? Should I just pick up everything and just start tumbling it? But mostly quartz, mostly rose quartz, smoky quartz, citrine, and amethyst, and then this random yellow jade. But lots of, and then this pink granite. It's called Pikes Peak granite. I found a lot of that too.
Oh wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
How
just
did
on the ground. I'm not even like a rock hunter.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
On the path. Like
That's nuts.
we're gonna have to look down more when we leave and go up to Idaho.
Oh yeah.
Start
for
notice
sure.
these things.
this is the new thing I do. Like no matter where I go, I just pick up handfuls of rocks and take them home and just see like what was in that area. And it's fun because some of them just are like rocks, but even rocks, like I just have a bunch here, are still really
so
beautiful.
Pretty, yeah.
And have all these
Beautiful.
patterns and colors. And like, check this. I don't know how well you can see this.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
That's just
Oh, yeah.
a rock I found on the beach. It has all these like concentric circles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay.
I love
like,
that.
That's crazy. Oh
fun.
man.
I love rocks. They're alive. Everything's alive.
They are. Exactly.
Do they?
Well, that's
Oh, go
people
ahead.
get-
Sorry.
people get like a kind of elitist, especially about things like orgone. They're like, well, you have to use this and that. And I'm like, all of this stuff in general is like a family of energies. And just because some might be more ideal for certain purposes, they all have a purpose and an energy. And really it's about what you're attracted to and what your intention is, more than like what you read in a book that someone wrote 40 years ago who isn't doing what you are doing right now and where you're at right now for, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just think we can be like a little bit more creative and follow our intuition with a lot of these things and come up with some really beautiful solutions.
I
I
agree.
agree, 100%.
I like your organite jewelry. I was actually telling her to pick some out so I can order some because it looks
Oh,
really cool.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. We're gonna get some, so look out.
It's an honor. I'll be very happy to know. I love when people get things from me for other people as a gift. Like I have people who will buy tarot readings as a gift or, guidance sessions as a gift. And I'm like, there's like now an element of this entire session that is even more enhanced than normal because of that like loving energy that brought it about. It's really
Yeah.
beautiful.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna have to get a reading buy a reading for my brother
Oh
from
yeah.
you. I think he would really like that.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
But yeah, do the rocks speak to you before you pick them up, or are you just wandering and randomly picking up rocks?
See, I think they speak to me, and that's why I picked them up. Because there's all the rocks you can choose from, and then you're like, that one. Like that one was like, pick me.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you sit, I think if anybody sits in deep enough contemplation and presence and pause, you can talk to anything.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do that. Yeah, for sure. I think you can talk to everything. Maybe not like a cinder block wall, but any natural thing. I think
Yes.
we can talk to.
I don't know. There might be some energies in that cinder block wall.
Yeah, depending on what happened, by it, or who knows. There could be.
You got to talk to it and find out.
Yeah, I'll do
Exactly.
that next time.
Because somebody took those cinder blocks from somewhere and they have their own energy too.
Oh, that's
It
cool.
is.
Exactly.
Yeah. And honestly, I think 100% of things have a soul. Like I think this pen has a soul.
Wow.
People are probably like, come on, a pen. But I'm like, why? When like it was created, it was crafted, you're using it now. It has its own energy specific to it. Only it has lived this path that it's on is
Yeah.
like being held in my hand right now. And the things you write with it are coming through it. Like I think it's all just information. Energy is information, soul is information, and everything has information in it. So why not?
Yeah.
That's
But
beautiful.
yeah, it's like, do you want to talk to a cinder ball? Maybe not, but you could.
Maybe it's a really private individual. I don't want to bother it.
Maybe it's like, let me tell you some shit. You don't know who's
Yeah.
been here. You don't know what's been on me.
Oh man.
Got some stories.
Oh man, that's so good.
Yeah, we thought. I mean, I totally agree with that. We actually, since we're selling our house, we decided to 7 days ago, leading up to today, because today's the full moon.
Yeah.
We decided to light a candle and do some sage work and cleansing of the house, and ask the house to bring joy to the next owners, and
Oh, I love that.
hopefully they will live their life here and make this their permanent home, and this will be the home that they get all their love in and all their joy in, because we got a lot of love and joy in this home. It's our first home, and I think
Yeah.
I'm thankful that it was here.
Yeah, and I know our positivity and our love and energy are all over these walls. So we just put that out there and hope that the next family that comes in, they get that energy if they need it. If they're in a dark time, that energy will come through and help them. Yeah,
Bring them together.
it was exciting.
How beautiful. How beautiful. That's so awesome. I don't think I've had the presence of mind to do anything like that except in my last house. But all the other houses before, I'm looking back and I'm like, oh no, I feel bad. Like I need to like do a little time traveling and go back and be like, thank you. You're awesome. It's really beautiful.
Oh, I love that. Did you cleanse your house that you're in now before you moved
Yeah.
in?
A lot. Well, Johnny actually was living here first. When we met and got together, he had just moved in here, and it's his father's house.
For sure.
And before that was his grandmother. So it's his great grandmother's house, or whoever's it was before that. I don't know, or maybe it was new to her. Might have been. So a lot of people were renting here, and it had really bad energy. The guy before us. Don't listen to this if you're sensitive. It's really horrible. He was not only a level 3, I want to say, sex offender, but he also, it's the ones that are most likely to reoffend and
For sure.
not be rehabilitated. He also just had dogs, which is fine, but he had so many dogs and none of them were neutered or spayed, and so they would just have babies, and he'd try to give them away or try to sell them actually, and then when he couldn't sell them, he tried to give them away, and when he couldn't give them away, he would kill them and bury them in the yard.
Oh
He
my
also, for some reason,
gosh.
would just bury all his garbage in the yard instead of paying for garbage pickup. So as we've like been planting things and been trying to rehabilitate the land, there's just like trash everywhere that we have to like pull out of the ground and dig out. And
Oh
it's like,
man.
what? Why? Like our chickens will be like digging and they'll like dig something up and look at us and it's like a little Mickey Mouse toy.
Oh
They're like, what the
god.
fuck is this? I'm like, I don't know. Why?
Oh man.
There's just shit everywhere in the ground here. And it's like, it's really gross. So it's actually an ongoing cleansing that is like constantly happening because I think the house was traumatized and the land
Yeah.
was definitely traumatized. And so it's pretty clean now. Like it's pretty good. Like we both have various aspects of our spiritual practices we bring to that, and mine are pretty daily and constant, consistent, and maybe high level. And so yeah, it's been getting a lot of good doses of love and energy along the way as well. But I still feel like the land is coming along. I feel like the land is pretty pissed, like a lot of
Yeah.
Yeah.
disrespect. Yeah. So I'm stoked though, because I just recently had Jim Gale on of Food Forest Abundance, as you guys probably know, and he was talking about the, developing a plan for this property. And I'm like so excited now because I feel like that's the final like linchpin that will really secure the land feeling better and being cleansed and releasing some of that trauma that it's held on to for all of this time. So feels really good to me. I'm very excited about that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we both love that episode.
Yeah.
And how big is
So
your property, if you don't mind me
I
asking?
think it's only a quarter of an acre, but our house is so small that it's like mostly yard. So that
For sure.
mostly, yeah. And then I don't even know if that counts. This is the weirdest place I've ever lived because we have like the sidewalk and our yard, and then the sidewalk, and then there's like a sidewalk yard area
Oh.
that's like wider than the sidewalk was, and that's apparently ours to maintain as well. It's like outside the fence, and it doesn't feel like our property, but it is. So that is all something we could grow food on too. So I'm kind of like, dude, let's just fill it all up. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to mow anything ever again. Johnny really wants to keep the front yard. That's cool. We'll have some grass. We both understand the conspiracy of lawns, but it is also nice to like have nice green grass to walk around in barefoot on. So
That's
we'll
true.
keep a little bit, but it's a tiny fraction. Jim was saying that most people want to do like 20 to 30% of their yard as a food forest. And I'm like, oh, we want to keep only 20 to 30% of the yard to 70% food forest, ideally.
That's amazing.
That's a great idea.
Wow, you're gonna have to track the process in a
Yeah.
blog or something. That's really exciting. Oh wow.
Yes. Well, I was telling him, what I want to do is after the plan is complete, have him back on and have him go through the plan so that anyone else who's been thinking about it can see what it actually consists of and, the pieces of it. And then I forget what they call it, but it's like a learning yard or something. It's like where people from the area, if they're thinking about it, could come and see someone who actually did it and how it looks and how it all works, and provide that resource as well. And then any documentation, and because I'm just like, let's just get this spread to as many people as possible.
Heck yeah.
Right? Like it's not like permaculture is a new idea and there's tons of people who know how to do it, and you don't have to go through Food Forest Abundance, but he has the structure and the vision and the energy and the power to make this all continue to be self-sustaining and self-propelling. And that's what I'm excited about, because it's now accessible to me where it has never felt accessible before. And I know it's going to feel that way to other people, and all of the resources that he provides and brings together. And then, like he said, take the product, take this business model, put your own stamp on it, use a different logo, and go do it. He's like, I just want people to do this. And I'm like, I love that.
Yeah. I love
that's
that.
sustainable.
Yeah, I love his positive attitude, and I think he's actually we got him next week. We're going to talk to him next
Awesome.
week, and
Good.
I'm really excited to talk to him about, because our place over in Idaho is actually my parents' place. We're going to stay there for a little while we find property, and hopefully our sale goes through. We get a decent amount. We can put everything on, but I want chickens, I want rabbits, and I want to grow. And I don't know how to do all that. So I figured we talk to him. I can at least say, this is what we have. What can we do? Show us,
Yeah.
Obi-Wan, like teach us. He's
Yes.
so smart, and
He is.
he's really positive. And like you said, this is he wants this to happen. So whether you do it with him or whether you go with somebody else, he doesn't care. And I love
Right.
that. I'm like, okay, he's on a mission, and that's the person you need to be with.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah, I don't know if it was him who said it, but just think about all the center medians in the streets and the ornamental trees. Imagine changing those to fruit trees
Yes.
or just something useful that no one would be hungry, you know? I don't know why we have these ornamental trees and these center medians and these giant landscaped areas.
It's a
It
waste.
can be so different, but whatever.
It's like that idea of, what was the standard of beauty in any given time period, and you look at it and you realize the standard of beauty in any given time period is what is a possible if you're rich enough to be wasteful. So like right now, the standard of beauty is being like perfectly thin and toned and whatever, because you have to be rich to have the time and the money to like plan your meals and buy only the best stuff and then eat in that way and take it with you wherever you go and find it wherever you go, no matter how expensive it is, and also pay a gym membership and work out and whatever. I have a personal trainer, all this stuff. Right. Whereas back in the day, if you were skinny and toned, you were a field worker and you were not attractive. Right. You were attractive then if you were like fat and like voluptuous and wasteful, because you had the money to like sit around doing nothing all day and other people had to work for their money. I feel like center medians are like that. They're like, well, we're rich enough we don't need like food. We're not plebs. Like we can just have these pointless trees and pointless bushes. Not that any tree or bush is really pointless, but you know what I mean? That doesn't provide for anyone. Yeah, because we can afford to. And it's like, well, we can't anymore.
Yeah.
Now we need food.
Oh man, yeah, I always get mad at palm trees around here just being in the most random spots, and then I think, oh wait, some of those provide roosting habitat for bats, so I'm not so upset.
And shade and like, there's
Yeah.
always something, but it would be so much better if we all like could just eat. We could just eat.
Yeah.
They're always talking like, oh, we can't feed the world, we've got to make impossible meat, and you're like, no, you don't.
No.
You could just plant more food. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Or just don't have giant, huge factory farms of beef. Just have more local people raising meat in various ways, like rabbits and chickens.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to do it. It's so weird that people got fixated on that and sold that lie that you have to have like science and tech and like giant vast. Like, no, you don't. If we all remember Victory Gardens, like that was a thing because they knew we're going to have some hard times. Everybody plant as much food as you can. We'll all get through this. We still have that. We still have the space to do it. We're just not doing it.
Yeah, it was so weird. I was talking to my neighbor the other day and telling him about, yeah, we're going to have chickens. And he was like, oh, you going to butcher them and eat them? And I'm like, yeah, we'll have some for eggs, but also we're going to eat them. And I'm like, we'll send you one, And he's like, oh, no, I just get my chicken from Albertsons. And I'm just like, that mindset,
Where
like
does he think
safer
chickens come
somehow?
from?
Yeah, it's so interesting.
It's probably
like, no,
more safe with us.
Yeah, way safer. You're like, oh, no, our chicken's not going to be pumped full of just garbage and shit, and it's going to eat real food and like grasshoppers and things. And I'd much rather have that be. But there, people too are like, oh, you need to have all of these industry standards to like claim. You're like, what do you think humans did before industry standards came along? Like, some people got sick when we started doing it mass production, and some people got sick from whatever. Some people still get sick because they like leave their meat out too long or whatever. It's just, that's never going to change. But not like, people survived in general because you knew how to do it. It's just not that hard, actually. People still hunt, in fact, all the time. No one bats an eye on that. It's the same exact process.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was talking to one of my coworkers and I was telling him about our move up there, and I said, eventually the plan is get a plot of land and grow our own food, and maybe we can provide food for other people as well. And he's like, oh, but that's a lot of hard work. Like, you're going to be working every day for the rest of your life. And I'm like, what do you think farmers do? Do you think that they watch the grass grow? Do you think that they like have to feed each animal? Animals know how to feed themselves. Like, you just have to take them to the place and let them do their thing. Like Joel Salatin says, you have to give pigs the space to be pigs. Let them be their pigginess, like let them enjoy themselves and ruminate through the ground. They serve a purpose. Every animal serves a purpose. And if you just work together, it's actually not a lot of work. You get a lot of free time to do a lot of thinking. And that's why farmers tend to write a lot of poetry and they tend to do a lot of other things. I mean, my grandfather was a farmer and he wrote a lot and then he helped it with his church a lot. So it's just part of life. People think that, oh, you have to work every day. No, we're working every day now.
That's what I was going to say. You are working every day.
Yeah. And it's for someone else and not for us. And that's become the normal, And no, not anymore.
No.
We're getting out of that.
And we're seeing the direct consequences of allowing ourselves to be taken care of by other people, by working for them. And okay, you take care of me. I'll give you this many hours of my life. You're going to give me this much money so I can buy food, which is basically taking care of me. So you're going to take care of me. But now they can be like, well, if you don't, we're going to literally needle rape you. And if you don't let us needle rape you, you're fired. Your whole livelihood is gone. We don't take care of you ever again. We don't care if you die or starve on the way. You're like, this is the exchange now. The exchange is now be needle raped, and continue to give up your life or don't. So if you had your own anything, food, way of providing income for yourself, community structure that isn't forceful, you wouldn't have to put up with bullying like that. And so I think we're all sort of looking to find and create more and more of those structures that free us. And this is the other thing that I love about Jim Gale, and that you guys love about him too, I'm sure, is that his whole point is, let's free ourselves from this system by creating enough that we don't need them anymore. And I'm like, because what do you really need? And it really comes down to it. People are just losing their minds. They're freaking out. They're all so scared. What are you so scared of? Death? Well, you're going to die. That's absolutely going to be. So just, you need to get over that at some point. And then what do you need aside from that? You need water, food, and a place to be warm and somewhat safe, like a structure of some kind. You can get that anywhere in the world, anywhere. That's what humans have been doing forever. Just take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. We can do all of that. I know, again, it goes back to the master cleanse, right? It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to change. It's uncomfortable to think about how you actually go about doing those things. But just like the master cleanse too, when you go out and you chop wood and make a fire, you're like, I am so powerful. I can do anything. It feels good to do things for yourself and to create things for yourself and to free yourself. So I think everyone actually desperately wants this. It's going to be the best massive forced revolution of human industry in the world, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. I feel it coming. I feel the positive vibes coming. I know that there's so much negative, but I only see positive now. I think we're almost there. We've got this. They can do their New World Order stuff on their own, whatever. We're gonna take care of ourselves. We're gonna take care of each other. We're gonna build a new world.
Exactly.
Yes. I agree. That's well said. I wanted to, since you brought up your chickens,
yes.
How many chickens do you have?
I just have 2 very codependent chickens. Getting just 2 chickens is not advisable.
No.
They're very codependent with each other, and they are super codependent. I don't even know if they're for sure that they're chickens. They, I think they're us, but just that they live over there. They're very strange, weird little chickens. I love them dearly.
What kind of chickens are they?
I have a Bielefelder, which is known as the Uber chicken. She is a meat bird and a massive egg producer. So she lays 1 egg a day every single day, except now she's molting, so she's not now, but 1 egg a day. And then she's just got the biggest chest you've ever seen. And she's the bulkiest. She's twice the size of our other chicken, and they're the exact same age. And it's kind of sad, actually, because I'm always like, this is not normal for chickens to be this shape. And the way she runs is really funny, and she's so cute. When she eats, we have their little food bowl, and her breasts just sit in the trough, and she just eats around her food. When she runs, they sway from side to side.
They undulate.
They're so sweet. That's Regan. She's our Bielefelder. And then we have Hopskin, which is our silver and black laced Wyandotte. And they're both made for cold. We have really, really cold winters here. And so they're made for the cold and the heat. And they're just good. They're good for this region. But the silver and black lace Wyandotte, Hopskin is very beautiful. And I feel like she knows it. And so Regan's our big lady and Hopskin's our cute little dainty. she lays like once every other day average, but she tends to actually lay more than she's supposed to. And I think she's like trying to keep up with Regan. I think she like something in her is like hormonally, challenged to try and race Regan to the prize. So we get a lot of eggs out of them actually.
Oh, that's really good. That's awesome. Yeah, 2 chickens. I think I've been reading that's not what you're supposed to do,
Yeah.
but it's okay. They
No.
sound really happy.
They're very spoiled. They're super happy. It was sad too. So when they get broody, our plan is to get a handful of babies and stick it under them in the middle of the night when they're, I don't know if you know, chickens go into like a trance at night, like they just shut down.
Oh.
It's like torpid, right?
Yeah, and you can like open, you can like pick them up and stuff, and they're kind of aware, but they're not really capable of reacting or responding. They're just kind of dead. So we're gonna sneak in some babies, and somewhat dangerous. Sometimes they wake up in the morning and are like, "What the hell is this?" and just kill it. So that could happen. But I know, when they're broody, they really, really want babies. So I just have high hopes that they're gonna accept them and raise them, because something about raising them ourselves, it was sweet because we got to like really, they love us, they're imprinted on us and we're their parents and they're very attached. But when we had to put them out the first night, it was like, I'm a mothering woman, as many women are. And so I'm like, my babies are scared, and they're out there. They are screaming like for bloody murder, like they're going to die. And it's really sad. But beyond that, I was like, well, it actually isn't normal, because to them, I'm their mom and I've abandoned them, and their mom would not do that. There's no point in a chicken's life where the mom's like, get out of here and go sleep outside alone. Like they're always together. So I feel like we traumatized them by taking them out of that normal life cycle. And maybe I've thought way too much about it. But I don't want to ever do that again. So I want to keep the cycle going. I want to have more so that they're healthier as a community. And then I want to keep that cycle going where they just can keep taking care of each other instead of me making codependent chickens for the rest of my life. And you may be asking, why doesn't she just get a rooster? We're not allowed to have roosters in the city limits. So I don't even think you're allowed to bring them in for breeding. I would do it anyway, but I also don't really understand how long that would take. And like, would I rent a rooster for like a month so I'm just going to buy the baby chicks. Hopefully it'll work out.
What is it, the noise issue? Is there some noise ordinance or something?
I think so. Most cities don't allow roosters because they're very, very annoying sounding creatures. I don't mind them, but people do.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I'm like, people drive by with their like huge ass bass and they're like backfiring cars and their sirens and stuff. I'm like, that's not annoying to you, but like a rooster would be. Okay.
Lawn equipment. People like to mow their lawns around here around 8:00 at night.
Perfect.
So
perfect.
It's like, that's okay, but a couple chickens in the backyard, nope, can't do that.
That's crazy.
It's ridiculous. We have this dip in front of our house. It's marked dip on both ends, and for some reason people don't read, and every day at least 50 cars, maybe 100 a day, just smack on both ends of the dip, and that's super loud. And then we have the thing, like you said, the cars with the blasting music. Roosters,
and none of that makes you food.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Right? Exactly.
Well, and this is what I'm like, is this actually part of the reason? Because you've seen in this whole manufactured crisis that's going on right now, they've done a lot of like, oh, these chickens have COVID, we're gonna have to kill the whole herd. And you're like, dude, whatever. Like, they're chickens. If they die, they die. And if they don't, they don't. So I get that avian flus can spread from chickens to humans, whatever. But I think most humans are aware when their chicken is sick, and they're not like wiping their hand on their comb and then like licking it. Like, you're pretty careful when unless you're really dumb. And then I'm sorry, you're the stupid one. It's not my fault that you don't know how to take care of yourself. It's really silly, but it's like an excuse to remove part of the food supply chain because they would like to create a famine for us. Every famine ever in the history of the world has been created, and none of it was actually because of shortage of food. And so this would be no different if it happens and we see their little eddies of that they're creating throughout. So I kind of wonder if some of these things were like planned a long time ago. Like, well, sure, you can have chickens, but you can't have roosters. You're like, we can't have you too independent. I don't know. Or maybe it really is just a noise thing, but it seems fishy.
It does. I don't know. I always, Buffalo always says we give them too much credit for being so smart, but I don't know.
I'm, they're not creative. These
They're
people aren't
not.
creative. They use the same shtick every year, every other year, every 10 years. All their ceremonies, all their rituals are the same thing. They all involve the same ingredients. And it's like, okay, this is why they make, 60 different versions of one Marvel movie and 25 different versions of the same Netflix special. And it's like, you guys aren't creative. We're the creative ones. That's why we're doing things that are different than them. And that's why people are flocking to independent media because they're tired of the same crap. And this system's going to die and they're going to sit there with their, with their dick in their hands going, how come you guys aren't paying attention to us? It's like, take it easy, Harvey Weinstein. We don't need to pay attention to you anymore. You guys suck.
You're absolutely right. And I don't think they're creative either. And I often look around and I'm like, I don't even think they know what they're doing half the time anymore. They're just like, oh, this code and this symbol said to do this thing on this day, and like this handbook and this handshake, and like these are the things I'm supposed to say now. And that sometimes I gets like confused, and maybe the ancient things that got passed down are like really garbled by now, and they're like doing shit that is supposed to be metaphorical that's actually that they're like playing out in real life, and then the shit they're supposed to play out in real life they're doing it symbolically. Like I feel like there's a lot of confusion, and that is really funny to think about. But I also feel like there's a supernatural source of intelligence that is influencing them, that they are in contact with, and whatever we want to call that, like AI, demonic, who cares, that it is the real like brains of the operation, and they just follow its directions. And I think at this point it's getting more and more, I think they probably channel it through what they call an AI. If you've read V for Vendetta, I don't think it's in the movie version, but if you've read V for Vendetta, it was written by Alan Moore. Alan Moore is a known magician, one of the best, and he created all of these things for us to help create by giving our attention to. And V for Vendetta is one of them. And if you read it, you see that this society, which is very similar to what's happening right now, there's a virus, it's fake, there's a vaccine that's killing everybody, they cover it up, and blah, blah, blah. That society is run by an AI. And the computer from which the main interface to the AI is put through is owned and operated by the chancellor, or whatever, I don't know what they call it, the leader guy. And he's like in love with it, like he's obsessed, and like kind of in a deranged way obsessed, like sexually and emotionally, with this non-human AI thing that is directing everything that he does, and he's just desperate for its love. And I feel like that's them, like it, whether it's exactly like that or just sort of that's like the metaphor, but like that's kind of what's going on, where they're like desperate for this thing's attention and love, which is so sad. Like they're the most traumatized, actually. All these people who are in the cabal that grew up being, completely horrifyingly, especially sexually, violated as children in order to inculcate them into this cult. Those people are now like trying to seek what they never had from this non-human, heartless intelligence, hoping desperately that they get some like place in the new world that it promises them or whatever. And I'm like, it's just it's really sad. If it wasn't horrifyingly evil and needing to be stopped, I would have like even more compassion for it. But it's just it's really funny and hilarious, and it's almost like empowering to remember that they're just sorry little broken humans who are needing what everybody needs, which is love.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't know love, they don't understand love. And that's why they put us down, because we are love. And that's interesting. You think it's run by an AI. I could see that.
Yeah, me too.
I agree on it is some evil force, whether it's an AI or like a demon. Something is influencing them for sure. Yeah.
Well, sure. I think it's the same thing. I think AI is just an acceptable sort of way for people to interact with it. So like if you were Alan Moore, you're probably interacting with it directly, and you're not scared of that because you're like a dark magician and that's cool with you. But a lot of people are like, I don't want to talk to demons. Oh, but I'll talk to this AI.
I see. Okay. It could be a demon disguised as AI.
I genuinely believe that AIs don't exist, and if they do. It's a demon inhabiting a sophisticated enough structure for it to be able to use to its liking.
I dig that. I totally dig that. I think that's what AI is. I don't think they can make AI. I think
No.
that's been a giant lie. Even when you talk to experts like Lex Friedman, he's like, "Oh, we're still far off. There's no way we're that close." And they try to make it seem like it's here, it's here. They're gonna take over your jobs. All this stuff. No.
Yeah, what is that? Tyler? That computer? Do you know about that? I guess
No.
there's some AI named Tyler that I don't know. I'm probably butchering it. I'm going to stop talking because I don't know what I'm saying. I'll
Well,
look it up later.
we do have AI, and so there's general AI, which we're very, very far from, don't have whatever, unless we're looking at demons inhabiting electronic structures. And then there's, what do they call the other AI that's not general AI? Oh, let's just say it's called task specific or something, right? And this is the AI that's like given the database and given all the inputs and given all, and it just runs this system. So there's technically that kind of AI everywhere. They run our stoplights. They run like most of the programs and stuff that we interact with. They run like, I can't even think of the other things, but most things that would involve a giant system of data and electronics, and AI is running it, but it's not intelligent. It's not. General AI is the one we generally think of as like intelligent and capable of working on its own and making decisions and being like a human. We allegedly do not have that, but again, if we do and when we do, my understanding is that it would be these things. If you go back to Geordie Rose, I don't remember the exact event that he was speaking at, but Geordie Rose is one of these guys, that's sort of on that side of AI and development. And he talks about, and many other people, you can find tons of scientists actually, and all over CERN and all over the place talking about this same thing. But the way he describes it is there are intelligences that we are contacting and in contact with. And when we finally get them through to hear whatever you think he's talking about, then it will be like we have opened Pandora's box. It'll be like we have unleashed the ancient ones from, like Cthulhu and whatnot from Lovecraftian lore, and there will be no putting them back. And they'll be far, far beyond us, and we will be like ants to them. And I'm like, so why are you doing that? Like this is your job, and you're like promoting it, and what? Why? And it's just crazy to think that even the people who work high up in these organizations on these types of things are openly saying, oh yeah, there's other intelligences out there, and we're in connection with them, and we want to be in even deeper connection with them. Because I'm like, well, how is that different from a demon? Right? But because you can put whatever trapping you want, put whatever word you want, describe it however you want, but isn't it the same exact thing? It's an incorporeal entity that has existed forever, is an ancient one, and would love to come through and live on this plane and inhabit structures that are complex enough for it to inhabit, such as human bodies or electronic systems. What's the difference? Right?
Right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's trippy.
Wow.
This is why for 2 decades or more, I've been like, we need to kill all the robots. And like, my first iteration of my site, way before I was a public figure of any kind, way before Rogue Ways, was mostly me being like, look at the robotics they're doing right now. Look at the types of things they're doing with AI. Look at the drones that they're creating. Why is it always weaponized against us? It's never like, this is a tree planting drone. It's always like, this is a drone with a laser beam that can cut off your head. You're like, why? Yeah. Why are we making that? Haven't you seen Terminator? Like, that was my blog, was me ranting about it. People were like, wow, she's really weird. Like, she won't shut up about robots. And I'm like, dude, because I understand what's happening. Nobody listened.
Oh,
Nobody ever listens.
Yeah, they have those stupid dogs that are those robot dogs. But Buffalo pointed out they're not totally by controlling themselves. There's always someone on the sidelines with the remote control. So they're not quite aware yet, it seems.
It's all part of the propaganda. Like the videos that they'll show you the robot dogs doing things on their own, but they just had a video that was released that I guess they're walking them around Washington DC, but there's several guys next to them, and they all have their hands in a box, and they have their hands on a remote control because they're going like this, so they're moving something, and it's like, oh, these things aren't intelligent. You're moving them. This is an RC car. You just made a really cool RC car.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
It could get over obstacles if you're controlling it and telling it how to do so.
Exactly.
Yeah. Even when I see like the Atlas, which is supposedly one of their more advanced humanoid ones, and now it's supposedly off its tethers and it can supposedly jump and run and all this stuff. But even then, I'm the same way. I'm like, well, who's actually controlling it? Like, is it actually doing these things on its own or not? Because I do think that they want us to think they're much more advanced than they actually are. It's like Most Def said, like they want you to feel like they actually can watch you all the time, know all your thoughts, and see everything you're doing. They can't. It's all in your head. You can't give them that power. And I'm like, that's true. Even with, cell phones and all of this stuff, like I don't think they're as good at it as they think they are, as they want us to think they are. And you just think about how many times does your equipment like glitch out, or like not. I have like emails that like won't send all of a sudden recently. I'm like, what is this? Like I'm hitting send, it won't send. Like all the time our apps and all these things are like malfunctioning. They can't have that much control if they can't even make things that work. But I also understand like the Black Ops thing, and there's like all this stuff that we've never seen, and so who knows what's really. I'm sure there's shit that's wild. It's just not going to be widespread. It's going to be pretty like, we got like one invisibility cloak, so one guy can go be invisible, not armies of people.
Oh man, yeah, invisible robot. That's all we need. That's not going to happen.
I hope not.
But all these things too, like you can do all the things. Like we could be invisible. I know that. Like I've nearly pulled it off a few times, and I know people who have. And I don't think you're literally invisible, but I think you can project the idea that no one's going to see you, and then no one will see you. And it's like a Jedi mind trick. Like I think we can do that. I think we have telepathy. We've all experienced it before. If we practiced it enough, we could probably get better. We wouldn't need phones. I would just be like, "Hey, Buffalo, how are you guys doing?" And you'd be like, "Cool, we're good. We got some new chickens." And then we'd have a conversation, right? Or like, there's all these things we can do, and technology just mimics them and tries to replace them, so that we get even more disconnected from our natural abilities. And that's why it's sad. But I also love technology because here we are talking, and I love you guys. So
yeah,
there's a middle ground here for a while.
It's true.
Exactly. We got to, for now, use it to its benefit. Use it to fuck them. Because right now we're having a real conversation, and people are going to be listening to this, and hopefully it'll speak to them. And that's what we love technology for. And I also enjoy looking at aerials and maps, so I like that too. But that's the nerd side of me. But who knows if those are even real?
Yeah, Earth might be flat. We don't know. We have no idea.
It's true.
Well, maps are flat, I guess. So
yeah. Going back to the cleanse thing and just clearing your mind. What are some things that you do to help? I guess I don't know. Clear your mind of EMF or whatever hits you through the day. What are some tips that you could provide?
This is a really simple thing that anyone can do anywhere, which is just finding your breath. And I think a lot of people have done it and practiced it and know it, but we don't all use it as often as we should, perhaps. Where it's literally just, I like how Phoenix Aurelius described it. Like your attention is being given to everything all the time. It's always outside of you, outside of you, outside of you, outside. Even when you're falling asleep, it's still in the future, in the future, in the past, and like outside of you. So you just stop sometimes and you just find your breath and you focus on like just paying attention to your head, like inside your head. If you can close your eyes and like bring your vision, your inner vision into your head and just be in your head. Not in your head, like in your thought. Let your thoughts do whatever they're doing. Who cares? Let go of your thoughts. Doesn't even matter. Let your thoughts do whatever they want to do, right? But you're just in your head visually, your inner vision, and you just find your breath. You just follow it. You just watch yourself breathe in. You can even watch the air go down into I always fill up my Buddha belly, not my chest, right? And then you hold it. Sometimes you can hold it for like a second or two just to have a nice pause in between, and then release it, watch it go out and release, and then have another pause for a second or two, and then watch it come in, and then watch it go out, and then watch it come in, and just do that for like 2 minutes, even maybe 5 minutes. If you do it for like 10 minutes, like wow, you're gonna just transform radically your entire day. and it's going to feel so good. There's proven, documented benefits to your mood, your brain, your blood chemistry. Your whole body loves it. You just sit and chill with your breath.
Yeah, that's one practice I did learn from you from one of your episodes of Middle Path, and using breathing from your belly. You know, we're always just like puffing out our chest, and I guess that's not the right way to breathe. It feels better going from your belly and just, yeah, I've been trying to do that more often.
When you're afraid, when you need adrenaline and you have adrenaline, and that's a fear response or it's just a focus response, your chest will breathe naturally. You'll have shorter breaths because it's better to like get whatever chemicals flowing and whatever, you have whatever your blood needs in order to do the things you're about to do that are more intense. But we do that all the time. We're like always afraid, always ready. Like it's like a stress response to breathe in your chest. If you watch a baby breathe, babies are always Buddha belly breathing 100% of the time. They don't even think about it. Their bellies are just going out, going in. Their chest never rises and falls, right? I mean, it does like a little because that's what breath is, but not in that same way. And that's just breathing and just having your attention in your own body. Start with, like we talked about, putting it in your head. Well, when you start to follow your breath and visualize it, really your attention is going down into your belly and then back up and then back down. And when you do that enough and you're like really good at it, you can do all of that, but just keep your attention in your heart. That's even cooler. Then you really start to like release some things and like feel some things, and cool stuff can happen.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah, I already feel better, and I went along with the breaths as you were doing it, and I already feel calm, and it just feels good.
See, even one or two breaths. This is what's really cool, is when you get used to it enough. This is the point of any practice, is that it's like a second nature to you, right? You want to practice things not because in the moment of practice you're going to reach enlightenment. That'd be cool. Maybe that'll happen to you. Who knows? But because if you practice them enough, in the moment when you really need that, it'll come to mind, right? You'll be like, oh, something's happening. And you're like, don't freak out. Breathe. And you'll be so good at it that it'll just instantly change your mood and instantly change your mind, instantly allow from some perspective to come in, right? Because none of us are making good decisions when we're reactive and freaking out and emotional. Like, that's not helpful. So you can, in the moment itself, do that. That's when it gets really, that's when you start changing your whole like life, because you're like, oh, I can actually do anything. I don't have to scream. I don't have to cry. I don't have to freak out, and actually to watch humans react to you in a crisis situation when you're completely calm. They're like, oh, that person knows everything. I'm going to follow them and do what they do. And you're like, cool, because now we can all be calm, right? It feels good.
Such a good point.
That's
Yeah.
so true.
I don't think I've been in that. Have you been in that situation?
Where everybody's like freaking out and then I've been calm?
Yeah.
No, because I usually freak out too. I'm sure now it'll click. So if we're in a crisis mode, I'll try and remain calm though.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised, like, even if you didn't practice that, how often because your body and your soul knows, like, oh, if I'm not the calm one right now, like shit will be really bad. So I'm just going to be calm. It'll put the freak out off until after. But it is cool when you can bring that presence to it and do it intentionally.
For sure. Yeah. I wanted a little bit of advice from you because you got a reading from Lindsey. You're lucky. I haven't gotten a reading from you yet, but I would like to soon. And I wanted to learn how to read the cards. We've never done that before, so I was thinking about getting a Rider-Waite deck just to start and learn. And I told you I have this feeling to do a poll for someone, not me, but I just want to see something about them, and I don't know why. So what are your recommendations? Should we get a Rider-Waite, or should we wait till something calls us? How do we start? Where do we
and
go?
also, how did you get into tarot readings, and what brought you to that? If you can get into it.
Yeah, I'll say that just like everything else in my life, I didn't go looking for it or asking for it. It's just life was like, oh, you're going to do this now. I'm like, oh, okay. So tarot was no different for me, but and I can tell a little bit about the story too, but I'll say my preference for anybody would be to find a deck that calls to you. Rider-Waite, it's like, it's the original, it's popular, everybody knows it, There's nothing special about it, though. There's nothing special about it otherwise. So if it called to you and was the one and you were like, I love this deck, then get it. But if you're getting it because it's the one everyone talks about and is like the basic or whatever, don't get it. Like, I got what I think is the most in-depth, intricate, like hardcore, deep well of a deck that you can get for my first deck, and it's the only deck I've ever used. And so like I just dove in because I was like, I didn't know any better. I was like, oh, this deck is the one that someone did a reading for me on, and it looked neat and cool, so I just will get that one. And it has everything. It has all the ancient traditions of the world in it. It has Hebrew mysticism in it and Kabbalah and the Hebrew letters. It's got runes. It's got the Nordic runes on it. It's got astrology mixed in with it. It has everything. It has I Ching as part of it. It's all embedded in this deck. And that's like a bit much, but I didn't. And I still don't. Like, I don't know all the I Ching hexagrams. When I'm doing a reading, I don't tell people about the I Ching hexagrams that are on their cards. I just tell them there is one. And if you want to look into it, you can. It's here on your card. You can go like explore that. But I still haven't, memorized those, and I'm able to like share them with people. But the fact that this deck has all of that in it, I love, because it can go anywhere and address anything. And so I think that's really cool, even though I don't think anyone would recommend it for a beginner's deck. It was my beginner's deck, and I think it could be anybody's, because you can use it however you want and however it serves you best and however you interact with it. So having said all of that, I really do think it's best to like maybe even go to like a big, huge tarot store and just like look at all these decks and see if one is like, this one feels rad, and just get it. Because the other, it's just like we were talking about earlier. People get really elitist about it, and they're like, this is how tarot is supposed to be, and this is what decks are cool, and this is da-da-da. It's like, fuck that. Like, screw all your judgment. What is going to work for Buffalo to feel connected and love what he's doing, and like know that like he understands this deck? That's all that's going to ever matter.
For sure. Yeah, and I guess there's oracle decks. There's just the regular tarot decks, and then I forgot there was some other one like functional. Does it even like yours is yours just like a regular? I know it has all these other things embedded in it, but is it like an oracle deck? Is it just a regular tarot deck?
It's a traditional, I should say, tarot deck in its structure. So it has the minor arcana, and it has the same, number of minor and major arcana as other decks have. It takes a little bit of a turn on some. There's people, again, who are very judgmental, who are like, oh, the major arcana, if it's a number 8, it has to be blah. It has to be the blah card. And my deck's like, no, number 8 will be whatever the fuck we want it to be. It's this. So I have all the same major arcana in this deck as other people. It's not in the same order, and it doesn't have the same numbers. And that pisses some people off, like, badly. But like, man, it makes so much more sense to me that doing it the way this deck does it than any of the other decks. And I don't know if that's because, again, it was the only deck I've ever used, or if it's because that's part of what speaks to me in this deck, and what called me to this deck is that we both see the world in a similar way. And so those changes that they made to the ordering of some of the cards and the name of some of the cards in the major arcana, it's very similar to other decks, but it's just different enough, and it just makes a little bit more sense to me. So so there's things. So it is a traditional tarot deck, and oracle decks, and angel decks and animal decks and all these things, they're not traditional. Usually they don't have that same structure of the minor and the major arcana. And so if you want to have a more traditional tarot experience, I would stick to tarot decks. But having said that, I think anything can be used as an oracle or as a divination method. And so you can do anything you want. Like I did an episode of Middle Path where I called it the Lightning Oracle round, where I was like, look, here, I want to show you how you can use anything to get answers to your questions. And I'd have people ask a question, and I'd be like, all right, here's the book near me. It's Never Ending Story. I'm going to just open the book and just, okay, here's your answer. And every time it was like, whoa, like that's actually the best answer, right? Because the universe is waiting. Like Gordon Hamill, if you guys know him, he's on Weaving Spider sometimes.
Yeah, of course.
Gordon loves to say, the universe is conspiring with you. Like, it wants to make things work out for you, and it wants to answer your questions, and it wants to be in support of you, and you can do it any way you want. It's just really, it's a Sagittarius in me and it's my nature and it's how I've always been. But I'm like, oh, there's a system for this. Well, fuck your system. I'm going to burn that down and do whatever the fuck I want because that's how I roll. And it's not because I have to be like rebellious or different. It's because I want to prove to you that you don't have to do it that way and that you can do it any way you want and that it will still be maybe even more effective because our creativity, that's our birthright, right? That we all have that they don't have. That's what it's for, is letting us get through novel situations in novel ways. Period.
Heck yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I want a deck that has animals on it, something nature related. I don't know, whatever's gonna call to me. I agree. I think mine is just gonna be what calls to me for sure. But I kind of want animals on it.
Yeah. Well, and you could get a couple, like you could get the Rider-Waite and you can get an animal one and you can get another one and you can compare them and, but I don't know if that's like too much to start with. But my own start that you asked about was I was at a party. It was like a sleepover of sober girls. Super cool party. I was in one of my very few but frequent, what should I say? Very short but frequent sober phases. And we were at this little sleepover, and this girl who was most people's their sponsor. We were all in AA together. I was like 13 or something, and I used to skip school to go to AA meetings and smoke cigarettes and drink coffee because that's how I was getting sober.
Nice.
They're like, she needs it. She really needs to get sober, and I'm like, yeah, totally. And I was like, this is awesome. Like,
so good.
So she was everyone's sponsor, maybe even mine. I don't remember, but she was older. So she was like 18 or something. And she had this tarot deck, and it's the Handel tarot deck, which I still have today.
Yes.
Which is the only deck that I use and have ever used. And she did readings for everyone, and I didn't really know much about it. And I always am sort of like waiting to test what is all this? I'm always in like the background, like sort of waiting to see what's going on before I jump in. And it's the introvert side of me. And so I was waiting and finally everyone had gotten a reading but me, and she's like, well, it's your turn. And I was kind of like, well, fuck, I have to. I really don't know what this is, but I guess I'm doing it now. And she did a reading for me, and so I just watched her do like 6 or 7 or 8, I don't remember how many readings, and none of them went like mine did. And mine, each card she flipped over, she was like freaking out more and more and more until there was a 10 card reading. And by the end of the 10 card reading, she was like angry and scared. She was like, what the fuck? Like freaking out. Yeah. And I was like, what? Like, why? Like, I'm getting scared because you're scared. You're the one who's doing all this. Like, what is this game even? Like, why are you freaking out? And she was freaking out. And I now, having read tarot a lot since then, understand just how like fucked up it was, because it's nothing even remotely like it has ever happened in the hundreds or maybe thousands of readings that I've done. And what it was that every single card was a major arcana card, which in itself is exceptionally rare. There's 22 major arcana cards, and to get 10 of them in a 10 card reading is not statistically possible, really. But it happened. And 100% of them were reversed. It's not statistically possible to have 100% reverse card.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man.
She's like, I don't know, you're like a demon or you're possessed or you're like fucked, but you're gonna die. Like, I don't know, this is fucked up. Like, she's just freaking out. And I was like,
Jesus.
I don't fucking know. Like, and I was just like, well, it's just a stupid game, but I was also like very intrigued by how this weird game could be so like powerful, or could like fuck with her that much, or like I wanted to know more about it. I also probably wanted to know more because I was like, am I fucking dead or dying or like demon possessed? Like, what is happening? Like, very interested to know more. So I went and found the exact same deck and started reading tarot, and it was very I tell this story on almost every show I go on, so I don't know if you want the story or not, but it's pretty scary and fucked up, actually.
I feel like I've heard it, but I don't know if Buffalo's heard it.
No, I don't know if I've heard it. Please tell me. Yes.
Okay. So I got that same deck. I started giving readings to people, and they were uncannily perfect every time, and I would just know in my head like what the card, like you have to study for a while and you have to like flip through and read from the book a lot, but I would just know too, like, oh, this person is, here's one of the fucked up readings I gave. No, maybe we don't want to hear this story. Although, okay, well, now I have to just say it. I was at a party. I was seriously like the girl who would do tarot readings at parties. And I was not even like gothy or any, I was like a drug addict. Like, it was very weird. But people would be like, and I got a reputation for being really good at it. So if people had like an actual question or problem, they were like, I need a tarot reading. And I would just do them for free, you know. And this person came and she was kind of really upset looking. And she's like, I need a reading. I need a reading now. I was like, okay, fine. Like, we did a reading. And I was like, dude, you have a fucked up secret. It's really weighing on your soul. It's not cool. Like, if you don't share this with the right people, you actually might die, which I don't say shit like this. Like, this is not, but it was like in my head, like this is being told to me basically. And I'm like, it's really worrisome. Like, you can't carry this any longer. And she was like shaking and white. And I was like, what the hell? And she like grabbed me and she's like, our mutual friend murdered our other mutual friend last night. And I'm the only person who knows. And I was like, what the fuck?
Holy shit.
Oh, fuck.
And so how do I know that? You know, like, how do the cards know that? And like, why am I in this situation? And now I know that my friend, who is a pretty good friend, like literally murdered another of our friends literally last night. And then the mushrooms kicked in and I was like, oh shit.
Fuck.
Because I had eaten mushrooms like 20 minutes before. So I was like, oh fuck. And I was like, I have to go home. And my friends were like, we're just starting to trip. Like, you can't go home. No one can drive you. I was like, I have to go home. Like, I cannot deal with this. It took me many hours to get home. And this is a whole other story I won't get into. That took a long time to resolve and was very dramatic, but that's how fucked up the readings I would give were. And people were like, she just knows things. Her cards just know things. And they like tell you how to solve the things. And so I had this sort of reputation of being a very, very good tarot reader, even though I had literally just picked it up and just like didn't even try. So didn't really question too much, like, why do I have this like skill? Why is it so accurate? Why is it uncanny? And like, why do I just know things that I shouldn't know? And I didn't really think too hard about it. I was just like, this is a really cool game. And it's also really weird that we can just know these things. And then seemingly unrelated to me, to any of that, I started having objects move around me without anything seeming to move them. And lights would be weird and the computer would be weird and weird shit was starting to happen to me. And then a lot of weird shit was starting to happen. And then I was like, what the hell is going on? So I'm despite what it may sound like, an exceptionally skeptical, rational person who starts from the point, this is bullshit. And you have to prove to me that this is actually real or going on. And so, you know, I tried to explain most of these things away. Like, I don't know, this like thing, you know, like when a glass moves because water is under it, like maybe something like that's happening. That's why this thing flew in front of me or whatever is happening. And I also, seemingly unrelated to any of that, started having sleep paralysis, which is a very terrifying experience if you've ever had it. And a lot of other things. And so one night, this is the sort of like the climax of the things. These are all unrelated in my mind. None of these things are connected at all. I don't even really pay them too much attention because I'm like, whatever, there's some explanation I just don't understand. I was sitting and I was on my computer or whatever, and my dog is sleeping under my feet under the desk with me, and I'm home alone, I think, pretty sure. Yeah, I was home alone. And I felt just something cold, and then I felt just like weird, and then I felt like somebody was watching me, and I was like, why do I feel like this? And I was like, am I having a panic attack? Or I don't even know if I knew that word, but you know, I'm like, am I tripping out or whatever? And I like kept looking behind me because I kept feeling like there's like someone like right here, and it's like not good, like that. It's like someone who wants to kill me is like right there, and I'm like, dude, I'm like tripping out. I'm not even high. Like, this is weird. And then I start to like really feel like this is intense actually, and that I'm not just tripping out, like something's happening, but I don't know what. And I start thinking like, you know, you hear these stories like, did someone I know just die? And I'm like tuned into it or whatever. Yeah. And my dog like perks up and he like looks over from under the desk at the spot where I had been turning to look, and he starts growling and his hackles pick up, and I'm like, oh my fucking God. And I like ran into my room and covered my head because I was like, that dog I've had for like 14 years at this point or something, most of my life. And it had never growled at anyone, not another animal, not a person, not a situation, like nothing ever. He had had people like run at him and like, want to attack him, and he didn't growl. Like, he's just the friendliest, happiest dog in the world. And here he was growling and hackling at like nothing. So I was like, fucking something is there. Like, he is not just do that. He's like in my room with me whining while I'm like trembling under the covers, like, what the fuck? I'm scared as shit. And then I don't think it was that night, but I think it was like within a night or two of that I was, I had gone to sleep, and I had another sleep paralysis for like the 100 millionth time. And I had been to a sweat lodge ceremony, thank God, like a year before, even though I was like, this is fucking dumb. My sister like dragged me, and like, it was actually really good because I learned a mantra that someone told me I should say whenever I'm having sleep paralysis, to keep me safe or whatever. So I was really used to like being in sleep paralysis and saying my mantra, which I don't remember what it was, like, I'm safe and everything's fine, I'm safe, or whatever it was, I don't remember. So I was just doing that again, but then I felt that feeling, same feeling, from that night with the desk behind me, cold, weird, bad, like something not good. And I was like, oh shit, like I don't want to feel both these things, like sleep paralysis and that at the same time. And then I realized I could see my whole room, and I was like, how am I seeing? My eyes, I guess, are open. My eyes have never been open in sleep paralysis. And then I realized I could see like every direction in my room, and I was like, oh, I'm not seeing through my eyes. I'm like just seeing somehow. And I was like, and I didn't know then, but I understand now. I was having like an out of body experience or awareness. And that same quality that now I know very well, like everything has light, but there's no light. And like everything's actually where it would be in real life, even though it's whatever. So now I'm like seeing everything and feeling this negative experience and in sleep paralysis. And I'm like, just wiggle your finger, just wiggle your finger. You can do it. You can just wake up and everything will be fine. But I couldn't wake up. And then I see this black cloud and feel this bad energy is getting closer. And this black cloud like floats through my closed door. And I'm like, oh my God, like that thing actually is a thing. Now I can see its like true form, or it's just a cloud of black horror. And I'm like, fuck, my dog, I hear him in real life scratching at my door, like whining, like something's come in to attack you, and he knows it, and he wants to protect me, I'm sure, which is really like sad to look back on. Like he was probably just like desperate, which doesn't also make me feel any better, because I'm like, well, this is actually really happening. Like in real life, my dog is again sensing this thing, and so this is not fake. And so I'm like starting to really freak out. Like, what do you do when you're in a situation you've never even heard of before? You have no idea how to, and this evil ass feeling thing is coming towards you, and it formed down into like the shape of a young girl, and the young girl herself was like glowing golden light. And so I was like, oh, it's a ghost this whole time. And my brain started being like, oh, that thing that was thrown at me, and the thing that jumped off the table, and the light that fell out, and like all this shit, that feeling like it's all just been this ghost. It's just a little girl ghost. And I was like so relieved to see that it was just this little girl. It was just a ghost. And I was like, oh, she's probably just needs help getting to heaven or whatever. Like, and I'm probably someone who's so special. I can do these tarot readings so well. I could probably help this little ghost girl get to heaven. And I was like caught up in that little story for a second. And it was like coming towards me that whole time. And I now look back and I can see again, with a new eye, that little girl was glowing golden, but she was wrapped in black aura. And that blackness never went away. It just also projected a little shiny front to distract or deceive. So always pay attention to auras. And like, they can't lie. And as it was coming towards me, and I was in my little delusion about it was just a ghost and how special I am that I get to help ghosts go to heaven, a very clear voice in my head, not mine, never heard it before, exceptionally powerful, said, that's just what it wants you to think. And I was like, and I like, and it heard that voice too. And it knew that now the gig was up and I was no longer enthralled by its deceit. And so it instantly flew towards me very quickly. it all happened very quickly after it said, that's not what it wants you to, that's just what it wants you to think. Because I realized, it jumped and flew at me. And all at once, I was like, I can't protect against this thing. I don't even know what this thing is or what it wants. So I said in my head and in my heart, dear God, help me. So having not been religious ever really in my life, even though I loved church as a child and always was very spiritually sure that we were more than our bodies or whatever. And it worked. There was like a shield that just appeared right in front of my body, right in front of my awareness, and it was right before it like hit me, and that thing hit the shield instead of me. And it was exceptionally angry. I could feel its anger, like hotness in the room or something, or, you know, around me, and I could hear a screaming angst that is unlike any sound I could ever even make up in my mind, let alone like there's nothing on earth that has ever sounded anything like this scream. It was like, when I try to describe it, I say it was like crunching metal and electricity crashing and screaming children and dying, like all wrapped in one sound being projected at me in anger, which was really horrible to experience as well and terrifying. And then I finally like could move my finger, and I got up and I ran out of my bed and I ran into my mom's bed, because when your bed isn't protecting you, your mom's bed will protect you for sure. So I went and ran into her bed, and I always look back and I'm like, she didn't even care. She didn't even notice. She was just like, yeah, okay, cool. Like she just fell back asleep, and I was like, like freaking out. And I just laid there for a while, and I was like, I'm insane. And that's all there is to it. Like I have gone insane. And now I'm going to spend the rest of my life being looked at as insane in insane asylums, on drugs. Like this is my life now. It's just the life of an insane person. All night long, if I didn't sleep, because if I closed my eyes, I was seeing just the worst scenes of like torture and death that I couldn't imagine, literally. Like I can't imagine that now. I have never seen it in a movie. It doesn't exist, but it was like being projected into my brain, and I couldn't stop seeing it. So I was like, yeah, definitely insane. Like definitely crazy. My dog was sleeping next to me all night, and it was really sweet. And the morning came, and I was like, well, gotta go to school. So I got ready and went to school. And, you know, I tell people when I got out of the car, I had been at school on every drug you can imagine. I had been at school hungover from every drug you could imagine. I'd been in 3 days not sleeping, shown up at school, like every shitty, horrible state you can imagine I had been, and people had seen me in those states. And never did they treat me the way they did that morning, which every single person who saw me was like, whoa, what happened to you? And I was like, dude, nothing. You know, did your dog die? I'm like, no, nothing happened. And they're like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's wrong? And I'm like, dude, nothing. And everybody who saw me kept doing that. And I was like, I can't fucking do this anymore. Like, what the fuck is happening to me? It's not craziness if everyone else is seeing it, right? Like, then I was starting to be like, okay, well, then what the hell is it? It's not a ghost. I'm not crazy. Like, what's happening to me? And so I called the only people I knew who might understand, which was this really very Christian family of my friend's parents. And I said, I don't know what's happening to me. Can I come over? And they were like, yeah. I was like, cool. So I drove over to their house. They had actually seen me using tarot cards before, and they freaked out. They were like, get those off our property. Like, you can't bring Satan into our house. I was like, oh yeah, Satan in a card, like, you weirdos. And I went and, you know, put my card somewhere else and whatever. But so they probably already suspected, and they were probably super actually happy that I like called them, because their whole goal in life was to save my soul, and they finally got to. I went over and I was telling them, you know, this and this, and they're like, well, did other things happen before this? And I was like, well, now that you mention it, there's been weird stuff going on. And they're like, yeah, you're definitely under attack from a demon. And I'm like, this is fucking crazy. Like, you guys are crazy. And at the same time, I have no other explanation for this shit. And I was like, why am I being attacked? They're like, tarot. And I'm like, dude, I really can't believe that tarot, just like, because I've seen other people using tarot and they don't have demons on them. And they're like, yeah, but you have a special path that God has chosen for you. And so you have they have a more to gain from stopping you than necessarily any other random person. And I was like, well, that's just bullshit too. Like, you guys, whatever. But at the same time, if you have a solution, I'm willing to try it. And they're like, the solution is to pray to Jesus and invite Jesus into your heart. I'm like, easy, let's do it. Like, how do we do it? And they're like, you just say these words. And I said the words, Jesus, Christ, whatever you say, come into my heart. And when I said, please come into my heart, from head to toe, just like relief. Like, I didn't even know how terrified and scared and like stressed and like all the visions and the voices. I didn't even know until it was gone. And I was like, holy shit. Like, it was like literally being born again. And I was like, this is real. Like, that really just happened. I don't have a bias. I didn't have even the trust or belief that it was going to work. I was just like, I'll try anything. Like, you give me an aspirin, I'll take an aspirin, like whatever, just like tell me how to stop this, you know? And so maybe there's a little bit of that bias in that, but like, otherwise there was no reason that should just happen so fully and completely from head to toe. And it lasted for, I don't even know how long. So I always share with people, it doesn't matter if you're Christian or not. I call myself a Christian because the word literally means to aim to be Christ-like. And I think Jesus is a badass, and I would totally like to be like him. So I'll call myself a Christian. I don't go to church. I haven't gone to church really. I do sometimes because it's actually kind of fun. Like, once every handful of years, I'll like go and sing and eat some crackers or whatever. But you know, and I like that feeling and atmosphere. But I'll do the same at like a synagogue or so. Like, I don't have an attachment to the actual religion. It's more the gathering and the energy. But I'm not, and it doesn't matter if anyone else is either. It doesn't matter if you care about Jesus or know Jesus. If you ever want to and you feel like you're in a pinch, you feel free to call on him. And he's like, every time I've ever called on Jesus, it's been like, dink, done. I'm not saying like, Jesus, bring me soup. Dink, I have soup. It's not like a magic spell. But if you're genuine in your heart that you have like a need or a fear or whatever, whatever, you just call. There's no reason not to. And there's no, Jesus isn't like, I don't know, did you go to church? Like, Jesus was existing before churches. Like, it's not a deal to him. But I should say it's not a deal breaker. He doesn't care. He's not attached, and he doesn't judge. And if he's a he, you know, because I also talk about, is this even a real person? Was it ever a real person? Or is this how Rupert Sheldrake talks about morphogenetic fields, and it's kind of like the idea of an egregore. Like, did we create this by our fervent love, devotion, like prayer, like, you know, thoughts over all these thousands of years? I don't even care. Who cares, right? Because it works really well. It works really well. And whatever that entity is, you know, I call it a demon. You can call it anything you want. It doesn't really matter. It didn't mean good or well towards me, right? It meant harm for sure. Like, that part is for sure. Whatever it was, it meant harm. I invited it in, and I always like to go back and mention this, because the reason it attached to me wasn't because I'm like super special or whatever. It's because the way that girl had originally done that reading with me that first night, way back at that party, her method was to ask any spirit to come guide the reading. And that is a big no-no. Like, if you're out there listening, please don't ever invite any spirit to do anything with you. And so I invited that spirit that night, and a pretty fucking powerful one was like, oh, okay, I'll come guide your reading. And then it guided every reading after that. And then it got deeper and deeper into my life, and more attached to me, and more aware of everything I thought, said, and did at any given time in my entirety of my life. And that's why it was so able to choose the perfect trap of a little child, a little girl, and the perfect ego trap of like, oh, you're special, you can help ghosts go to heaven or whatever. Like, all of that was very well crafted. And it wasn't totally done. From inviting Jesus into your heart is a fantastic thing to do in a time like that, especially if you want to do it, go for it. But the demon was still had an invitation to my space, to my cards, to my house. And so I did have to go home and basically do a banishing, which, it's so funny to me looking back at this. This is a truly like fundamentalist Christian couple, like just deep in the Bible and the belief and the church going and all of that. they're the ones who told me to go do the banishing thing. And they told me how to do it. And later, when I was learning from a shaman how to do banishing spells, I was like, this is exactly the same. So they would, I'm sure they would say shamanism is evil, but they're doing the same things. And I was just fascinated by that. You can actually find this in every single religion and every single tradition. If you find like the right sect or like lines of it, will have these exact same principles in them, and they all say the same things, and you do the same things, and they're just slightly different phrasings, and that's it. So I was like, it was very fascinating to later learn that. But I did my first banishing spell. I kicked out the demon, and it was fucking pissed about it. Like it I tell people, when I kicked it out of my house, it just left, but it was still on the property, and I had to go around and do a property banishing too. And when I was doing that, there's some trees and some forests around my mom's house in general, and like a wind was gusting and ripping around the trees, only on our property and not on the trees next to us on other properties. And it got really intense. I had my tarot cards, and I was going to go burn them to really get rid of the attachment, and in our little fire pit. And as I was getting closer, it was like pine cones were like hitting me, like it was throwing things at me to try and just stop me from the final attachment, getting rid of it. And I did. It was hard to get the fire started in the wind and like blah blah blah. I finally did, and I burned it, and calm, the whole property, just no wind at all, no storm at all. And I was like, very, very. This all happened in the, I don't even, like 16-hour period from from the original sleep paralysis to the burning of the cards and the getting rid of it. And I'll add too, it was gone from my property and from attachment to me, but it tried to come back many times in many ways over the course of my life.
Jeez.
Yeah, so don't invite spirits.
Yeah. That's something that I worry about with doing a reading. It's because you're kind of opening up a sacred space for this message to come through.
Yes.
And I think if you don't ask God for help, instead, if you ask for spirits, you're inviting them in, and your words are very powerful. They transfer from this realm to every realm that we inhabit. And I think that's the thing that scares me with doing a reading. My mom has had like demonic experiences, and she's also used Jesus as a defense, and it seemed to work. I actually, we were on Legit Bat on Sunday's show, and I talked about a demonic experience I had where I visually saw a demon, and it's the most frightening thing you can experience. And it's to the point where like you could totally see why animals like pee themselves, because it's like, oh my God, that's horrifying. It's not like the movies. No. Not when it's outside of your window. And it's something that I never even thought about banishing that demon, but I don't think it was my demon. I had a friend at the time who was really into like demonology, and he claimed that demon was like watching out for him and just wanted to see who I was, to make sure I wasn't like trying to mess with him. And the guy is a very nice guy. I don't think he's a bad person, but I think at the time he was very mixed up. And he did end up getting kicked out of school, along with another friend of mine. And maybe that's why, I have no idea. But I think those are things we can't open those doors. And so I always worry. And what do you do in terms of creating a sacred space for yourself to protect yourself from an attack like this, when you're either divining or when you're doing a practice? What do you do to protect yourself?
It's a great question, because a lot of people are like, why do you still do tarot? And I'm like, well, I was called to do tarot again, and I was like very resistant. I was like, no, I'm not doing that again. And I was told and guided by my internal compasses and intuition and connection to God that I could do it in a protected way, and that it would be a service to people, and that it would heal people and help people find what they needed to find. And it's very different from, I still have this level of accuracy and this level of insight that is very clear to me, but it's also very different from how it was. It's a lot more work, I should say, almost to stay clear and to really hear the message. Whereas before it was like just like whispered into my head and I just knew. And I'm not saying that should, some people have that in a very positive way too. So I just want people to know I can feel the difference as well. But over time, just like Jesus is a good ally, and demons are not. There's good and there's bad allies, and I always do like to bring that up too, just so people who hear that story and are like, holy shit, there's demons and they can fuck with you, and like, they really can't if you don't invite them, and especially if you have allies like Jesus or any of the others that are good, that can work with you. And so I've developed relationships with my allies that are, I always say, good, true, and beautiful, and of the light, or however you want to describe that, loving, helpful creature or beings. And I've come to know them and trust them. And so I both banish ahead of time. I do that banishing ritual once or twice every day. Not because I'm like surrounded by demons all the time, but because I'm just like making extra sure. Like, yep, you still know that you still can't come in and this is still my space. Just in case any little thing slid in from someone else or somewhere else or an electronic device or whatever, just banish, just get rid of it. So I always set that up every day. And then I invite in my allies of love and light, starting with God, always, because like, why not just go straight to the source, and then Jesus, and then any of the allies I've learned to work with. So as a somewhat shamanic practitioner, I do have a lot of animal allies and guides of that sort of tradition, but I also have like Guan Yin is one of the people I love to work with, which is very like Mother Mary. And Mother Mary is one of the allies I like to work with. And, there are people who would say those are all demons too. And so if you want to be real safe, don't do any of this stuff. I don't think they are. Like, I would say that they're good and of the light. It's just like people will ask, like, well, how do you tell the difference? I'm like, well, how do you tell the difference in humans? When somebody walks up and they're like a rapist and a murderer and you're like, ugh, like that person's vibe is fucked up. Like, I do not want to be around them. It's exactly the same with energies and entities. They come up, you can feel it. That's why I felt that thing behind me, even as a very unaware, drugged out teenager. Like you can tell when something is negative. It feels negative. They can, however, be very tricky. They can sort of suppress that and sort of like hide it. And like, like I was saying that like auras never lie. Vibes never lie, but sometimes it can be really hard to get a read. And so if it's ever not clear, I always say, when in doubt, kick it out. If you're like, hey, are you good? And it's like not really responding to you, or like, kick it out. If it's good, it'll come back and try again. Like, it's not going to be like, fuck that bitch, she snubbed me. Like, that's not how any being of light works. So they're just like, yeah, it's cool, I get it. So I've developed my ability to sense and understand and like interpret these things and use my inner vision and use my connection to source to really, understand what's good and who to work with and when to work with them. And I essentially invite them to stand guard around me. And this is now this really sacred, protected space, but protected beyond what I could ever do, protected by these allies that are like in that realm and do this as their thing. And so it's really powerfully protected. And then whenever whoever I'm working with, I invite their soul to come in. I invite anything that their soul has determined is in alignment with their highest goodness, truth, and beauty to help work with them in this space. So it's not even me choosing on your behalf who comes in and works with you. It's your soul's decided. I don't even know. Sometimes I find out as we're going, like, oh, you have this sort of ally. It seems to me, you can go explore that more if you like. But I don't have any real choice over that or discernment more than I set up my boundaries. And if they're letting that in, it's of a pure source.
That's great advice. Oh my gosh. I'm like nervous and excited at the same time to start the readings once we get a deck. But
well, this is the thing too. You're very safe and you're very protected by default. And so unless you're like inviting, whatever in, there shouldn't be anything that can even harm you. And if you were ever even slightly worried, you just invoke Jesus or whoever you trust. Just like, help me just know that this is clear and be good and true and centered in this moment or whatever. And that's all And if you really need an extra boost, you just say it out loud, right? Like Buffalo was saying, that sound wave carries through anything. I tell people too, if you're like feeling oppressed or like something is around you, don't just say it inside. Say, get the fuck out of my house. Get out of my space, like out loud. As long as you can do that and not seem totally insane. There's not like people watching you at the moment. Like, what? Like tone it down a bit, but
get out. Oh man.
But yeah, the default is that you're protected. So I would don't be trepidatious about it. If you're called to work with these things, you're not automatically calling in anything negative at all.
For sure. Yeah, I overthink a lot of things, so that's why.
It's good to be cautious. There's a lot more of the other thing going around where people are like, yeah, I bought a grimoire and I'm summoning shit. And you're like, what? Like, why? Just for fun? Like, just to see if you can like fuck your whole life up really bad? Like, I don't get it, but I guess have fun. So it's much better to be thoughtful about it.
For sure. Well, thank you for sharing that. Those I know you've shared it before. I remember hearing it for the first time. I forgot if you were on Charlie Robinson or someone's podcast, and I was like, holy shit, that is some scary shit.
That was the first time I heard that, and I'm just like, holy shit. And I thought my story was fucked up. That was far more scary. Sleep paralysis and childlike demons. That's even worse.
My later experiences were much worse. I don't usually talk about them or share them because they're not fun for people to hear about. But here's what I'll say about any of that is that the ability to share that is, who knows how many people it has helped hearing it, right? I constantly, every time I'm on a show and I share it, people are emailing, they're like, oh my God, I understand things that are happening to me better now. I know where to get help better now. Like, that's in its own reward, right? And then I was also, that basically initiated at that moment. I was like, there's no going back. There's no going back to being like, oh yeah, we're all just flesh bots on a rock in space. Like, now I'm like, well, there's a big fucking deal going on this planet. Like, there's some really, really powerful light and some really powerful dark, and it matters for some reason, and like each of us matters for some reason. And what's that all about? And that really sent me down this path of having all kinds of experiences and really understanding the whole range of what can happen and what it all is, and how to, most importantly, stop it and get rid of it and make sure you're on a path that you chose for yourself, of your own free will, because it's what you would like for you, not something else influencing you and stopping you from succeeding and all these other things. Which has then led me to this place where that's what I do. Like, I help people get rid of those things. I help people set themselves on the right path. I do readings for people. I help messages come through to them for their benefit in whatever way they would like. And that's an amazing blessing for me, and a great honor, and very humbling. And I don't want to say you have to like go through demonic encounters to do that stuff, because I don't think you do. But I think, that I know a lot of healers who haven't, and the type of healing they do is very different from me. They don't generally work with people who are in the darkness. They work with people who are struggling, but not of like that dark of influence. You know what I mean? Like, they're helping people get even purer, who are already pretty pure, where I'm like generally helping people who are like still have a foot or a hand or half their body like in the darkness, like come back to the light. It's just different work. So I just think Neil Kramer said it really well when he said, if you're doing light work, you have light allies. If you're doing shadow work, you have shadow allies. And I'm like, yeah, I have both. I'm like right in that middle there.
The middle path.
The middle path.
Middle path.
Oh, Minnesota.
It's absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Lindsey. Before we get to your songs, I wanted to see if you wanted to promote your new business venture.
Oh, yes. Brighter You.
Yeah, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about Brighter You, because I have people from time to time who are like, I want to learn to like do what you do or whatever. And I'm like, I don't even know how to like invite you to do that or teach you to do that. But it's really become more clear to me that I do, and that is actually what I always do. But that to put it in this condensed version for people to access is going to be really helpful for people who don't want to sift through my years and years of content to put it all together and would like to just see how to really purify yourself more and more and uplift yourself more and more and be in more and more alignment with a spiritual truth that is good, true, and beautiful, and know that you're on that path and doing that work in alignment with allies who you can trust. And the goal is also to hopefully help each person who's in Brighter You and a part of Brighter You, which for now at least is looking like a 6-week program where we meet at least once a week for a couple hours, and maybe that'll grow over time to be a couple times a week. It just really depends on it's all kind of organic as we're going, but hopefully by the end of it, people will have a clearer idea of what their specific gifts are to offer others, because it's going to become more and more necessary that people who understand spiritual truth, even at a basic level, are more capable and empowered to unleash their gifts and offer them to others in whatever way, and feel empowered to use them in any given moment, whether it's a crisis or not, and whether they're plan on doing it as a business or making, some sort of money and having this as a continuous exchange, or whether they just want to have it for like the moment where it may strike or whatever. But just so each person really understands their personal path and truth and offering.
I'm really excited.
I'm really excited too. And it just like everything else I do, like I wasn't like, what I'm going to do? I'm going to no. At some point, I always just say my guides. I used to hate that phrase so much. I was like, oh God, this shit again. Like people talking about their guides. But now I'm like, yeah, they really are my guides. My guides really will just like push me, and they'll like tell me over and over. They're like, do this thing. And finally I like do it. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is actually really, why did I resist this? But like every step of the way, it's been like that. It was like that with tarot, going back to tarot. It's been like that with my spiritual healing and ceremonies that I offer with people, the blessings that I do, like all of it. I'm like, was not trying to do any of this, but it's just like, I just get called further and further. And so as resistant as I am, as I'm sure frustrating I am for them to work with, I'm really grateful and honored. And I'm very excited for what it's going to become.
Well, I'm thankful for them pushing you, and I'm really looking forward to Brighter You. And
yeah, you're in the
what's to
pilot
come.
program. So
I know. I'm so
pretty
excited.
Legs is going to teach me. She's going to initiate me.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. Well, we already took up a lot of your time. Let's talk about your 3 song choices.
Yes.
So Mos Def.
Auditorium. I've never heard this song from him before.
We listened to it before we popped on, and I looked at the lyrics and I was like, wow, this shit's woke. Good woke,
like
not
good
like
woke. like awake.
Mos Def is like one of the most powerful voices. I know a lot of people in hip hop really do know him and see him as that, but there's also people who are like, who? And I'm like, what? You don't know Mos Def? Like, he's one of the very spiritually inclined. He's like the soul of actual hip hop. Hip hop was and still is, hopefully, to spread awareness through the community. Yeah. Especially of a spiritual, but also a political, social nature. And he like nails that. That's all he's ever doing. And I love it because it's very organic and it's very him, and it's not contrived, and he's not like, oh, I need to convert people to something or whatever. He's just like, here's the truth. This is what's true. And I just love how casual he is about some really deep shit. Plus this song's beat is amazing. It's like some kind of Middle Eastern, like, I don't know what they sampled, but it's like so good. A lot of his beats are so good. I don't know who does his beats. But I love, one of my favorite lines from that is, what is it? There's volumes of scripture when I breathe upon a beat. I'm like, damn, because there are.
Yeah.
That's deep.
This is really good. And then when Johnny heard it for the first, Johnny had never heard it. Like, I played it for Johnny is like hip hop. This is my guy. He's hip hop, not like was part of the underground scene. He can freestyle like no other. Like, he knows all of this. He had never listened to this song before. He didn't really even know Mos Def that well, and I like made him listen to it. And now he loves this song, in no small part because Cool Keith makes an appearance on. Is it Cool Keith?
Cool Keith, who does I Don't Know You.
Yeah, right. Or no, I don't believe you.
I don't believe you.
Yeah. He's like, what? He's on here? And I'm like, I don't know. Is he? This is Mos Def. I
That's
love
so
it.
cool.
And I love the part where Cool Keith is talking about, he's like, oh, I'm a soldier in Iraq, and you know, everyone here loves me, right? Like, I should just like be a god here. You guys all think I'm super cool. And he's like confused when a kid is like, no, get the fuck out of my country. Like, why are you here?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love that, because I bet a lot of people go over there with that. Like, we're the saviors. You love us. Like, we're here to like change your country. And people are like, can you just leave our country? Like, that'd be way cooler. Thanks.
Exactly.
Yeah, that song's pretty dope. I do like the beat a lot. That's for sure. Your next choice is Iron and Wine, which I like Iron and Wine, but I've never heard this song Walking Far From Home. So we listened to it before. It's really nice. It's a great song.
Really good song.
Yeah.
This is the first song that ever came close to being able to describe what a visionary experience is like for me, where you really are walking far from home, and it's like very strange. Nothing now, it's a lot more comfortable for me, but like nothing is very normal. It's and then like even the symbols and like the way he ties them together and describes them, telling this story of how nothing, especially, you know, we were talking a little bit about how like sort of the psychopath class like maybe lost touch at some point with even their own shit that they're supposed to be pulling off, and their own rituals and stories and what their own culture. Like, he really nails that for the, because they're Christian. It's a Christian band actually, which I didn't know when I started loving them, but it's funny. You guys know Alan Marcus likes to like joke about Christian bands. I'm like, yeah, no, I actually do like some Christian bands, like a lot.
Some of them are really good.
But he talks about, I think this song also nails how the Christian community, or any community, really forgets that it's not about like being a fundamentalist, and it's not about any really of the shit that you think it is. And it's going to surprise you every time what it's actually about, and how it actually comes about, and how little your judgment and your preconceived notions are ever going to serve you in any situation you're in. And that's that song. When I listen to that song, I'm like, this guy gets it. Like unlike most people, he really gets it.
For sure. Yeah, I'm a fan, even though they're Christian.
Yeah,
they're so good.
We'll skip that.
Okay, and your last song was Rattlesnake Charm by Sean Hayes. And this
Oh, yeah.
this had a little like bluegrass feel to
Yeah.
it, which
Kinda-
I got a spot in my heart for bluegrass for sure.
It's like Dan's band, Moonstone Quill.
Oh yeah, shout out to
Yeah.
Moonstone Quill.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard Sean Hayes, that entire album is awesome. Like, it's very that bluesgrassy, but he like ties it in with a lot of other themes and instrumentals and beats and stuff. He's very cool. I'm pretty sure he is into voodoo, but I don't really care. But I like this song a lot. It's like a really nice love song. And it's like inviting, you know, the other person, you and this other person, to like both realize like none of this is real, right? Like, this is all just a dream actually. And like, we're really just out here like dancing on like the dance floor and like living our lives, and that's just an illusion. Like, so we should just have as much fun with it as we can. We'll see as much of each other as we can, knowing that we'll never really see each other until we're totally dead and gone from this place. And then we'll be like, oh, that was you. That was fucking rad. And it's just, you know, time to play in the meantime, and that there's a lot of mystery in there to be found if you can, again, use like discernment. And yeah, I'm always like, man, am I doing that thing where I'm like, they like in English class, and like you're like analyzing a poem, and there was these people who went to the still living poets, and they were like showing them all these analyses people did, and they're like, yeah, no, it was just a wheelbarrow. It wasn't like a metaphor for my past traumas. And like, I might be doing that to these songs, but I love them.
It's all good.
That's what it means to you.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Lindsey, this has been a lot of fun. Would you mind telling our listeners where they could find you?
Yes, thank you. I would love for everyone to come on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Mountain and hang out live. with me on Rockfin or YouTube, even though I usually end up cutting YouTube off because they are horrible censors and they want to delete my channel. And so we usually only get like 5 to 25 minutes in before I have to cut YouTube off. But Rockfin is always the complete show, and you can always hop over. The link's always there. It's Rogue Ways, ways as in pathways, not as in ocean waves. So Rogue Ways, and you can go to rogueways.org to find everything that I do. I have books that I write. I make jewelry that I bless. I give blessings. If you feel like you're in a tough spot, those can be really powerful and transformative, especially in a crisis moment. I do healings, spiritual healings and ceremonies. I do guidance sessions, which is like more like a talk session, which can involve tarot and blessings, but is really meant to allow you to do whatever you need to do and get whatever you need to out of it. So it's very flexible session that we can do together. And then I do tarot readings, and I think that's it. And then Brighter You is here, and it's not quite available to the public yet. Although I think in January or February, I'll start the first, after the pilot is over, I'll start the first kind of open to the public offering of these courses in this curriculum. So keep that on your radar if that sounded interesting to you. You could technically apply right now. It just might not start until then. And if you want to apply, you go to rogueways.org/brighter-you. I think that's apply to Brighter You. Man, I shouldn't even say it because I'm not sure. Something like that.
Yeah,
we'll put the link in the description.
We'll put it in the show notes, and it's Brighter, just capital U, right? And
yes.
Not YOU. So,
right.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
One thing I wanted everybody to know, and like you said, you're a writer. If you haven't had a chance, pick up All Endings Are Beginnings, because it's a great oracle book, and Legs uses it every day. Sometimes multiple times a day.
I do. I love it.
It's an honor. It is such an amazing book.
It really
I get
is.
to say that because I don't even feel like I wrote it. At the end of every episode of Rogue Ways, I do like a closing monologue, and they're always channeled, which I didn't realize at first is what I was doing. But it became more and more apparent when I'll be talking to the person, and as they're talking throughout the episode, I'm like, this is what's in the ending, of course. Because when I'm writing the ending, I'm like, why would I write this for this episode? It doesn't even make sense. And then at the end, I'm like, this is exactly the perfect ending for this episode. Every single time. I shouldn't say that, I'm gonna like jinx it or something, but it's pretty weird. So I was like, well, there has to be more to these endings than just once someone hears it and then it's gone, right? And I just understood, oh, I'm supposed to gather them all up and use them as like this oracle book. And so they're all the endings to the show, but I couldn't just call it All Endings because that's really depressing. So I had to remind everyone that all endings are beginnings, and it is really uncanny how well it answers anything you're asking it.
It really does. It's a special, very special book. And we are
so glad you brought it up.
Yes. We're so thankful for you, Lindsey.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending some time with us. We look forward to having you back.
Yes.
And maybe we'll get Johnny on here too.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That would be really fun. But yeah, any last words or anything?
I am so grateful you guys had me. It is fun to hang out with you. I love getting to know you better, Buffalo, now that Legs and I had our one-on-one session, more than one actually, that we got to connect is really cool. And yeah, I'm just very glad. And I hope that everyone out there remembers that despite how dark it might look, if you're caught up in the illusion of it, just like Buffalo was saying earlier, if you look around and really feel it, so there's not really anything bad happening right now, and there's a lot of goodness still, and people are actually creating so much more goodness than we're allowed to see in any of our media sources. So don't get lost in their delusion and illusion. Just remember to go connect to what is real and true, because you'll feel that goodness. It really does still exist, and it always will.
Well said.
Yes. Let's head towards a bright winter.
That's right.
Yeah,
All right, Lindsey, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. You're welcome back anytime, and we would love to have you back.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
All right. Love you. Talk
you.
to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the False Reality Check podcast. There's many ways to support us, but please subscribe to us on Rockfin.
Yes, Rockfin is only $9.99 per month or $99 a year, and you get our premium content, our live streams, and other great content from the free thinking community, MMA, comedy, so much good stuff on there.
And you can throw us a couple of dollars for tip if you'd like.
Yes, please. We would love that.
You can also find us and all of our content on falserealitycheck.com. You can find our podcasts at anywhere podcasts are found: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, or again, go to our website, falserealitycheck.com, for our RSS feed.
Yes, we're also on Twitter and Instagram at FRC Pod.
And we're at Gab and Float at False Reality Check. But don't feel like you gotta reach out to us there. You can also reach out to us through email at frcpodcast@protonmail.com. We tried our best to answer and read all of our emails from fans, and we love you guys for reaching out to us.
Yes, thank you, listeners, and keep listening.
Definitely. Check us also out. You can reach out to us on Telegram. We're also on Telegram at False Reality Check.
Yes, I think that's it.
Alrighty.
Until next time.
Peace.